welcome to the stream. It's Tuesday. We're just going to be reading a chill Higurashi reading night. There we go. Back. Okay. So yeah, Higurashi, When They Cry. We are continuing Kagebushi. Third stream, I think, of this arc. If I remember correctly. Hopefully, we can, I know we're starting just slightly on the later side already tonight on Tuesday, but hopefully we can, sit in and just read for, like, close to 3 hours, maybe? Just throw out a random number. What if I just threw out a random number and hoped for the best? Before I forget to say at the end of the stream, stream tomorrow night might not be happening. Like I said, I've got evening plans tomorrow after the day job. And I don't know how late those are probably that's going to run, or if by the time it's over, am I going to be in the mood to play something. So tomorrow was supposed to be Blueprints, but I'll say right now, that stream and Blueprints in danger of not making it tomorrow on stream. But we'll see how tomorrow shakes out. If not, then the main thing is that no stream tomorrow night, no stream on Thursdays as normal. So then this might be the last stream until Friday night, so just putting that out there. Here we go. Wednesday, June 29th, 1983. This is Komura from the Transportation Division. Number 19 car, please respond. I repeat, number 19 car, please respond. This is the Transportation Division. Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Officer Manai, please respond. Beep. The person you are trying to reach is currently patrolling in an area that cannot be reached by radar. If you'd like to leave a message, please leave a brief 50-character message after the dial tone. Have we seen what Madoka actually looks like in this game? Have we seen, and I'm just not aware? If the person is feeling up to it, they will respond to you later. Click. Click. Madoka and I responded in a teasing tone and raised the volume on the car stereo, acting as though she didn't hear anything. Of course, the receiver still turned off, so the person on the other end didn't hear anything. Even though she was infamous for her non-exemplary work ethic, Madoka wasn't so arrogant as to talk down to her superior back at the Transportation Division. I'd like to keep slacking off, but I guess this is taking it too far. It had been an hour since returning from patrol in whatever, city. I tried, legitimately. And that was the 5th call now. Even though it was easy to avoid responding the first time, that couldn't go on forever. While sighing, Madoka took off her police hat and tossed it in the passenger seat. Since the signal at the intersection ahead was red, she pulled her small patrol car up to the edge of the road and came to a stop. And then, she tilted the rearview mirror and began to straighten out her messy hair. Split ends. How gross. Madoka realized that tomorrow's payday and she'd be able to pay a visit to the hair salon. While thinking that, she pulled the notebook from her breast pocket and opened it to find the rewards card held inside. If she paid one more visit, she'd receive a free shampoo. She was planning to hold off until she could get a free hand cream, but she did just run out at home and it would be convenient. Shampoo. Should I get the shampoo? Thinking about shampoo brought back sour memories. Her recent fight with her began because of shampoo. Her. Saturday, last month, while they were on the night shift together, Madoka thought to take a shower but noticed she was out of shampoo, so she went to borrow some from the first division. Shampoo was inexpensive, so of course she would be willing to share. All Madoka had to do was quietly take it without a word, but then she had to go and open her big mouth. Huh? What's this? What are you doing? You don't use any hair conditioner at your age? It's the same with soap. You're so frugal. You don't need to use cheap shampoo. How will you ever get a boyfriend like this? That's, damn, what a statement there to end it. Even though Madoka just meant it to be a little joke, she must have thought she was sticking her nose where it didn't belong, and when it was quite uncalled for. Thanks to that, she got in a bad mood and made a sarcastic retort, which irritated Madoka and resulted in her slinging back some insults of her own. In the end, the two of them stormed off in anger and haven't spoken to each other since. Still, if we come across each other in the hallway, I'll have to deal with her sulking face. Are you really that childish? Madoka was certainly the cause of the problem, but she should have been old enough to get over it. Actually, she was always like this. She acts calm and intelligent, but in reality she can be very emotional and hates when her interests and values are pushed outside her comfort zone. That's why she still couldn't accept the man Madoka chose to marry. Ultimately, she declared, if the two of you get together, I'll disown you as a sister. Madoka attempted to persuade her on 19 separate occasions, but she got shot down every time. Though the relationship wasn't as broken as it was before, so at least progress was being made. There really are a lot of roadblocks in store. Whoops. As she was thinking that, she noticed the light turning green. Madoka sat down her notebook, fixed the rearview mirror, and stepped on the accelerator. As she crossed the intersection, she noticed a sports car approaching from behind in the next lane over. And then it quickly overtook Madoka's patrol car, traveling just barely at the speed limit. What to do? She stopped to think for a second. When she glanced over, it looked like the driver wasn't wearing a seatbelt. Though it wasn't a legal violation at the moment, wouldn't it be an officer's duty to stop the car and give them a warning? Well, guess it's okay. Madoka lifted her foot from the accelerator and let the car gradually lose speed. A patrol car could catch up over a long enough distance, but a pursuit would cause trouble. Plus, the way the car was driving was clearly intended to provoke police vehicles. If a patrol car got tangled up with someone like that, the odds were even higher that it would lead to trouble. In fact, a couple days ago, one of her colleagues engaged a driver who committed a parking violation, but the driver screamed at the officer, who eventually came back crying. Female police officers are an especially enticing target for thugs and dissidents. No matter how they wielded social justice, there was always injustice that stood out of reach of that power. So all you had to do was stick to the book. You're honest to a fault. Madoka shrugged her shoulders with a bitter smile on her face. It went without saying that it was directed at her, who had been given a reprimand just last month for pursuing a suspect across prefectural borders. It was a really unfortunate incident. They were actively pursuing the culprit, but they had already identified both the model and plate number of the vehicle, so they should have relayed the information to the neighboring police in Sawaguchi Station and left it to them. The perpetrator was just a single offender, petty thief. It was a sudden, insignificant crime, yet it ended up becoming a much bigger deal than it needed to be. Nevertheless, she crossed the board without permission in the heat of the pursuit and was reprimanded for it. It ended up adding an unnecessary blemish to a promising career, even though she would have received no complaints if she just acted within her jurisdiction. Besides, she can achieve a great promotion if she can just stay quiet for the next year. So why did she burden herself with such trouble? Madoka suddenly sighed. From her perspective, she was just squandering her talents and efforts while spinning her wheels way too hard. However, if the positions were reversed, if Madoka were in her shoes, she'd probably leave the field work to others and spend almost every day of her tenure making the rounds and greeting others so the bigwigs would remember her. Despite being a local police officer, Tomoe's excellent results got her adopted as an executive candidate by the main headquarters of the National Police Agency, put her on the elite course, the so-called recommended group. After all, she was an elite officer who rose above the most difficult portions of the National Police exam, and that brought in a lot of attention. Plus, she was a woman. Selecting her supported the government gender equality movement, and even got covered in the newspaper. So she took advantage of all that. She would reach a rank and position higher than her late father, and would be guaranteed a long and prosperous future. At least, she should have. Even so, she thrust her neck into all sorts of crime scenes and worked tirelessly all night without ever taking days off. Guess she inherited that passion from Dad. Madoka thought back. Her father definitely wasn't the sort of person who cared about rewards. If she saw a person in trouble, he'd break his bones trying to help, even when he wasn't on duty, and from time to time, he'd go through some incidents that didn't seem worth it. Madoka certainly respected her father, but all the same, always watching him run off and leave the family behind, sometimes it hurt. As if the helpless strangers were more important than his own family, it was impossible to avoid seeing it that way. And is being a police officer really such an upstanding job? Unlike her and her father, Madoka was invited to take the recruitment exam and just ended up with a job. That's all it really was to her. That's why she couldn't emulate their enthusiasm. Looking at it from their point of view didn't change anything. Officer Manai, please respond. Officer Manai. While lost in thought, Madoka could hear the voice over the radio repeatedly saying, please respond. Even so, they'd probably give up after around a dozen times this time as well. And unsurprisingly, the radio went quiet a few minutes later. And then, a sigh came out. Since she didn't respond after the fourth attempt, they would likely send someone else instead, but Madoka was sure Chief Kimura was trying to send her to go pick her up. Well, she was still in a bad mood from their earlier quarrel, so Chief Yamaoki had probably asked him to set this up to give them a chance to make up. But only today she was thankful for that sentiment, even though she also thought it was stupid. Sheesh, give me a break. Why did it have to be today? She scratched at the hair she just straightened out of frustration. Madoka was feeling particularly tired. Today, not only did she lead the parking violation crackdown this morning, but she also gave a traffic safety class at an elementary school, filling in for a junior officer who couldn't make it due to a sudden illness, and she just got back from that. Speaking to a huge crowd of children, telling them the rules of the road, and explaining why they matter, it can be difficult to get through to some of the unruly children with words alone. It took a lot of care and attention to keep the conversation funny and interesting so they wouldn't get bored. It was really hard work. Besides, no matter how hard you try to teach them, there's always at least one person who will rebound once they get through their driver's license exam, like that idiot driver earlier. Holding the frustration emptiness and continuing a speech for over 3 hours, including the rehearsal, would be exhausting for anyone. I want to go back to the station and head to the break room right away. Besides, being told to make up with her in this totally exhausted state went beyond a joke and sounded like nothing but a harassment to Madoka. She would be in a bad mood the moment she opened her mouth, and it would be difficult to get an apology out. It was readily apparent that she would just fire barbs and sarcasm, souring things even more. This is a patrol car, not a taxi. It's an airport, so why not just hail a cab and send the receipt to the accounting department? Oh. The communication light lit up once again. Sheesh, it's going to be another go pick her up message. Madoka predicted so, because it rang 5 times with the same intervals. And then, she put her hand on the dial, intending to reduce the voice volume even lower. But, just then... Hi! Hello! This is Kageboushi PS. Can you hear me, Madoka-chan? Huh? Hearing a familiar voice, Madoka turned the dial back to full volume, and then she focused her ears, trying to identify the person calling out to her. Hello, Madoka-chan. Please come in. No doubt. Madoka quickly parked the patrol car on the side of the road and picked up the receiver. That voice! Kura-chan! Why are you there? Oh, You finally responded, huh, Madoka-chan? That's not good. You need to pick up the radio when PS calls you. I was worried something might have happened to you. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I thought it was just another call from Chief Kimura, so... No, I heard about it before. But you know, the chief and the people in the transportation department are both concerned, so can't you two just make up already? Yeah, but... Well, no! Madoka suddenly raised her voice as she gave a vague answer. Then she switched off the car stereo and took a deep breath to calm herself before picking up the receiver again. Listen, Kura-chan. When I heard about the disaster near Shishibone, I contacted Okinomiya multiple times, but nobody ever got back to me. I was really worried. Sorry about that. Things are a little chaotic. Phone lines still haven't been restored. I'd intended to contact you sooner. Still. Sheesh. Surprised by that answer, she breathed a sigh of relief. She was happy to finally get an explanation after struggling to get a reply up until now. But that means you're safe. Thank goodness. TV made it seem like Okinomiya was in bad shape. No. Well, the disaster actually struck the neighboring town, Hinamazawa village, though. And it's true that they're in terrible condition. Sorry I didn't get in touch sooner. His voice sounded mocking, cunning, and insolent. Still, Madoka knew Kura-chan since before she even became a police officer, so she could tell when he was being serious. She had a rather lengthy history with Oishi. Madoka first met him while she was working at a hostess bar. He was a regular customer. Her first impression was that he was a goofy old man, but it turned out that he was a detective and acquaintance of her father, so eventually they got speaking even when she was off work. Plus, he had apparently taken care of her older sister a few times before, so by now he became a close friend who she could place her trust in. Oishi-san, that's enough chatter. Wrap it up. Oh, that's right. Actually, Madoka-chan, can I ask you a small favor? Favor? What is it? Madoka responded to Oishi while thinking about the identity of the person who interrupted on the radio. Please go pick her up today. There's something very important I need to discuss with Chief Inspector Minai. With Sis? Jesus. That sounded like a bomb was going off. The roar of the engine resonated as an airplane flew across the sky at dusk. She caught a glimpse of an unfamiliar logo on the plane's tail wing, but she did briefly see characters that looked like kanji, so she assumed it must have belonged to that new Chinese airline. She thought the name might have been First Chinese Air, but she couldn't recall. Come to think of it, the number of flights to mainland Asia have been increasing. Tomoe quietly muttered that thought while watching the wings fly off into the twilit sky. When she was young, she always used the Tokyo airport for travel abroad. But now, they decided to make an international airport here in response to the internationalization trend that came through Osaka and Fukuoka. So, the Chubu region became a major travel hub with many planes departing and arriving here. They've hit their capacity limit, and supposedly there were talks in Congress to relocate to a new international airport in the near future. Still, it was an indispensable gateway for the distribution of people and goods at the moment, and the terminal building off in the distance was bustling with a large crowd of tourists and businessmen.
あの頃の将来の夢はスチュワーデスさんだったっけ?
My dream back then was to become a flight attendant. Her reason was simply because she enjoyed traveling by airplane. She later set her sights on becoming a florist, then an athlete. Police officer and detective were jobs near the bottom of her list of future dreams.
そんな私が今や父さんと同じ刑事さんか.
But now, I'm a detective just like my father, huh? Tomoe imagined the face of her late father as she gazed down the runway. Tomoe's father, Yusuke Minai, he was strict and quiet, but at the same time he was gentle and had a strong sense of justice, and he was the sort of policeman that Tomoe was proud of. She barely spoke to him about his work, but when she spoke with her father's colleagues and superiors, they all had nothing but praise for him. When she saw the sheer number of people crying at her father's funeral, she understood that they hadn't simply been flattering her, and at the same time it made his departure all the more heartbreaking. Nevertheless, Tomoe didn't even learn that her father was a member of the Metropolitan Police Department until she was accepted into the recommendations group by the National Police Agency, working with elite officers and investigating national cases in the name of public safety. According to a colleague of her father's, he was secretly investigating a certain incident, and he died at home in a fire the day before the conference where he was supposed to report his findings. When Tomoe learned that fact, she was so shocked she couldn't speak for a while. 12 years ago, a fire burned Tomoe's home to the ground. Both her parents were unable to escape. The cause of the fire was suspicious and was eventually ruled arson, but the culprit was never caught. Her happy days were destroyed in a moment. Her cherished memories were reduced to ashes. Firefighters were able to rescue Tomoe and her sister Madoka from the second floor. The two of them only suffered minor burns. However, Madoka remained hospitalized for a while afterwards, not due to the effects of the fire, but from the shock of seeing her parents' burned corpses firsthand. Mom? Dad? Scream.
Madoka?
Madoka?
しっかりして! Madoka!
Get a hold of yourself, Madoka! Tomoe herself also became overwhelmed the moment she saw them. She began vomiting and her eyesight began to fog over. But Madoka was just a junior high school student at the time and far too mentally fragile to handle such a dark experience. And it took an entire year before her psyche was able to fully recover.
それに傷が癒えてもあの子は元には戻らなかった.
Even if her wounds healed, she never went back to the way she was. Even after Madoka's recovery, she continued to suffer heavy anxiety, especially when she was around fire. Not only that, she felt lost around her new, younger classmates, and her good grades at the beginning of the school year gradually dwindled. She also skipped school frequently and hung out with the bad crowd. Tomoe couldn't count the number of times they fought over that. Meanwhile, Tomoe entered the law department at a national university and had such excellent results that she received a scholarship. As a result, the differences between the two sisters grew larger, and Madoka's feelings of inadequacy drove the two further and further apart. The relationship became as cold as ice, till they met again a few years ago. They were as distant as strangers. Perhaps because of those differences in opinions, when Madoka introduced Tomoe to her fiancé, she was furiously opposed to the marriage, and she hasn't relented in that stance even now.
昔はあの子の考えてることすぐに分かったのにな.
Even though back in the day I used to be able to tell what she was thinking right away. It was the same with their fight over the shampoo last month. She couldn't even tell if Madoka was only joking around or being serious, so instead of just laughing it off, she instinctively resorted to vitriolic remarks. Even though they traded barbs like that all the time back when they lived together. Breathing a heavy sigh, Tomoe dropped her eyes to the file in her hands and opened it. It contained old notebook pages, individually wrapped in polyethylene storage bags. She accidentally found it in the storeroom of her house at the scene of the accident. It was the only thing her father left her. She opened the file and looked down. The notes that she discovered that day were deteriorating from 12 years of age and had been transferred to a file for preservation. A memo was scribbled on the last page of the note, surrounded by a big circle. Kageboushi Airport, June, Wednesday, go. That part was drawn larger than all the other text.
なんでこんなところに?
Why here? Kageboushi Airport was a bit far from the city center. She had traveled with her family many times, but never to this airport. Yet, her father was definitely visiting this airport several days before the accident. Plus, they had no relatives in this area, so he had no reason to visit here unless it was related to the case. 12 years later, she still didn't know.
父さん
Dad? She wanted to hear the answer. What was he pursuing? What was he trying to find here? Or did he find it? She didn't know. She just couldn't understand it.
お姉ちゃん
Oh, that's what she looks like. Okay. Sis! Question answered. Sis! Huh? Tomoe turned back towards the voice from behind. Madoka was standing there, brushing the hair from her face.
窓か
Madoka,
お迎えに上がりましたよ
I'm here to pick you up.
見ない次長
Assistant Director Manai. After hearing what she came here for, Tomoe carefully turned back. She could hear a small sigh from Madoka behind her.
毎年よく続けてるよね
I'm surprised you can keep doing this every year.
もう12年も経ったのにさ
It's been 12 years now.
まだ12年よ
Only 12 years.
年号だって変わってないわ
It's still the same era.
13回忌はこの前過ぎちゃったけどね
We've already passed the 12th anniversary of his death, though. Seriously, it's astonishing just how diligent she is, Madoka thought. Her sister Tomoe had been visiting Kageboushi Airport on every Wednesday in June since she discovered her father's old belongings. Even before she was transferred to Kageboushi. Even back in Ibaraki, every time. Even when she was a student with limited funds for living and traveling expenses.
大学の時の彼氏ともそれが原因で別れたのよねよその男に会いに行ってるなんて疑われて
Both of her college boyfriends broke up with her because of it. They each suspected she was sneaking off to see another man. She was astounded by the stupidity of it all. Of her boyfriends, that is. She couldn't imagine her older sister ever cheating, so they were idiots if they couldn't see that either. In Madoka's opinion, that would automatically disqualify them as boyfriends.
まそれはともかくとして
Well, in any case. Madoka took several more deep breaths, then calmly walked up next to Tomoe. But only a heavy silence blew over. Regardless, things wouldn't start until someone said something. Feeling no choice but to break the ice, Madoka turned to face her. But at that moment...
ごめんね
I'm sorry.
え
Huh? Surprisingly, Tomoe was the first to apologize.
この前のこと
About before.
つまんないことなのに大人げなかったわ
For being so immature over something so insignificant.
ひどいこと言ってごめんなさい
Sorry for saying such terrible things.
あ
Oh, yeah.
私も調子に乗って言い過ぎた
I said some unnecessary things too.
ごめんね
I'm sorry. How strange. Feeling slightly confused, Madoka examined her sister's face to make sure her complexion was normal. Maybe it was a trick of the setting sun, but she didn't look very lively.
怒ってないのお姉ちゃん
Aren't you angry, sis?
え
Huh?
あんなに昨日までこっちのこと完全無視だったのに
Up until yesterday, you've been completely ignoring me.
どういう変化
Did something change?
ずっと無視してたのはそっちじゃない
Weren't you the one who was ignoring me all this time? Of course not, Madoka thought. From the start, Tomoe was the one who... Forget it. It was a pointless argument. Just set it aside.
何かあったの
Did something happen?
ううん何にも
No, nothing.
何にもなくてちょっと落ち込んでるところ
Which is exactly why... Just feeling a little depressed. Nothing. Madoka understood what that meant.
父さんはなんで12年前この柿内空港に来たんだろう
Why did Dad come to Kakuichi Airport 12 years ago?
そしてメモになんでそのことだけを残していたんだろう
And why was that all he left behind in his notes?
毎年ここに来ていろんな資料を見て調べたのに全然そのことがわからない
I come here every year, and I've researched all sorts of documents, but I don't understand it all.
ただのメモ書きだったんでしょ
Wasn't it just a note?
それに6月だって言っても12年前と今とじゃ同じはずないじゃない
Even if it says June, that was 12 years ago, so it can't matter anymore.
わかる方がおかしいわよ。
It'd be weird if you actually did discover something from it.
そうなんだけど。
Well, maybe, but
うん。そうなんだよね。
yeah, you're right. Tomoe seemed off. Of course, she may have been disappointed after 12 years of striking out, but to Madoka, her sister needed to be more confident and prideful. Otherwise, it would be difficult to get through this without support, wouldn't it?
まあ、勝手な想像だけどさ。
Well, this is just my own guess, but
公安関係だから。あれの関連じゃないの？
maybe it was a public safety concern. Maybe something like that over there. After saying that, Madoka pointed her chin towards the slope at the opposite end of the airport, and over there was oppose the relocation of Kageboushi Airport international flights. Don't take away the jobs of facility workers. The hill is riddled with those placards, probably made by local residents.
勝手だよね。
How selfish.
空港ができる少し前までは騒音問題だの事故の危険性だの言って出て行けって大騒ぎしてたのにさ。
Shortly before the airport opened, they were complaining about the noise problem, making a big deal about the risk of accidents.
いざ規模が縮小になったら全然違うことを主張して手のひら返すんだもの。
But now that the tables are turned, they changed their tune on a dime.
節操がないったらあれしない。
What hypocrites!
仕方ないわよ。
Can't be helped.
今じゃこの空港で働いている人も多いんだしね。
There are a lot of people working in this airport at the moment.
リストラされて生活できなくなったら誰だって困るわ。
If you lose your livelihood in the downsizing, you're in trouble, no matter who you are.
むしろ補助金でしょ。
More like they're after subsidies.
せっかくの既得権益を削られるのが嫌なんじゃないの？
Isn't it better to cut down on wasteful expenses? Since Madoka has lived in this town longer than Tomoe, she understood the real intentions of the residents. That's why she couldn't help but feel cynical. The sorrow and anger of being robbed of your dear old house and land was as clear as day, but before and after the airport installation, the main demand of the local residents' citizens movement was a request for subsidies. And many of them didn't use the money to relocate, instead they invested into renovating their existing homes. And as time went on, the local occupants continued pushing movements for additional subsidies. That supposedly led to delays in the expansion of the airport. Thanks to that, there was no choice but to begin construction of a new airport, which greatly harmed the importance of this airport and caused many people to lose their jobs. How hopeless.
今でもいろいろと水面下で動いているそうよ。
Even now, seems there are all sorts of backstage deals being made.
政治団体とか噂じゃ大物政治家も絡んでるってことだし。
Rumors about the involvement of big shot politicians.
12年前にも公安絡みで似たようなことがあったのかもね。
So there may have been similar public security issues 12 years ago.
憶測で決めつけても真実は突き止められないわよ。
Even if you suspect that's the case, you don't know the truth.
それに
Plus, she didn't need to hear anything more. It was something Madoka realized just by doing a little thinking. So knowing Tomoe and her sharp intuition, she likely already investigated the matter. And she understood that discussing any further was just a waste of time.
せめて父さんの13回忌までは
All the way until the 12th anniversary of Dad's death.
なんて頑張ってみたけど結局ダメだった。
I did my best, but in the end it was useless.
父さんに叱られちゃうかな。
Maybe he'd scold me for this. Thinking about her father's character, Madoka was absolutely sure that wasn't the case. That was who he was. He would have admired her determination to keep trying for 12 years to make peace, so he would never speak ill or look down on her. Of course, Tomoe probably knew that too. That's why she was sad and frustrated.
ま、いいや。
Well, that's that.
お姉ちゃん、もう上がりでしょ。
Are you done here, sis?
送るわよ。
Let's head out.
うんいい。
Okay.
タクシー拾って帰るから。
I'll grab a taxi and head home.
もう硬いな。
You're way too stiff.
どうせ公用車をプライベートで使うなとか言うんでしょ。
Let me guess, you don't want to use a patrol car for personal use, right?
それもあるけど
That's part of it too.
ちょっとね帰りに寄りたいところがあるの。
But there's a place I want to stop at on the way home.
どこ？
Where?
歯医者。
Well, the dentist.
先々週からひどくって。
It's been bothering me ever since the week before last. Huh? Madoka stared blankly at Tomoe's blushing face. Come to think of it, she was frowning and rubbing her cheeks a moment ago. No. Wait. Looking at it in hindsight, all the times that Tomoe had an upset look on her face since their last fight. In reality, it was all due to a toothache? In other words, what Madoka thought Tomoe was so upset about was nothing but a misunderstanding? So they could have been talking to each other like normal all this time, instead of engaging in a verbal Cold War.
なんだ。
They're so goofy!
結局私の一人相撲か。
Wow, after all that I was making a fuss about nothing? Thinking of it that way, it seemed a little funny. If anything, it was Madoka who'd been the stubborn one.
何よ。
What is it?
別に。
Nothing, really.
お姉ちゃん、
Oh, sis.
歯医者さんまで送るからさ、その前にちょっと付き合ってよ。
I'll bring you to the dentist later, but let's go out together first. A few minutes later, Tomoe canceled her dentist appointment and hopped into Madoka's car. Then they headed toward Kageboushi Station. Boo-ba-da-ba-da-boo. They're so wacky. New airport construction plan. Boom bop boo bop boo bop bop. One, necessity of developing a new Chubu International Airport. Chubu International Airport, Kakuji Airport, is a major gateway to the sky for the Chubu and Tokai regions. Currently services direct flights to Asia, Europe, and the United States, and it boasts the 5th highest passenger count in Japan. However, the number of flights has increased due to the recent trend of internationalization. In order to cope with that, there are strict capacity limits on all facilities, including the runways. Unfortunately, efforts to procure the surrounding land necessary to expand the runway have proven unfruitful due to the opposition campaign led by local residents. Moreover, maintenance and development of existing facilities has grown difficult due to year-over-year compensation increases. Therefore, the most effective strategy for future industrial development is to build a new large-scale airport in a different area. 2. Elimination of coexistence between military and private facilities. Since the Air Self-Defense Force base is located adjacent to Kakuji Airport, SDF aircraft often use the same runways for military purposes. However, due to the difference in performance between civilian and military aircraft, coupled with the increased rate of domestic and international flights, several problems have arisen from the elevated complexity of air traffic control operations. Therefore, in order to prevent or reduce the risk of a major accident, separation of facilities should be established as soon as possible. A fundamental solution for this problem, too, is the construction of a new airport. Excerpt of a white paper from the Civil Aviation Bureau. Citizens opposing a thing? That sounds familiar in this game. Opposing a big government thing change potential. On the same day, I read that weird. On the same day, Kakuji City.
なるほど。
Angel Mart. I see.
ご事情はよくわかりました。
I understand your circumstances now. After downing the remains of her now lukewarm coffee, Chief Inspector Manai looks up at me from across the table. Her brow seemed furrowed. No, it definitely was, but since I knew why, I pretend not to see it.
お忙しい中、お手数をおかけします。
I apologize for the trouble. I know how busy you are right now.
本来なら一番近隣にあたる沖宮から捜査を行うのがベストなんですが、現状では。
Normally, the best course of action would have been to conduct the investigation from the nearest neighboring town of Okinomiya, but given the circumstances... A couple days after Oishi-san and I met up, we visited Okinomiya in order to conduct our investigation. Unfortunately, Okinomiya was still in a state of disarray in the wake of the disaster, so it was impossible for us to obtain any accurate information, much less anything related to our investigation. Conversely, what we received was ardent opposition from those we questioned. Not only was it the locals, but all the disaster relief workers we encountered treated us with disdain, which further complicated our work. So after consulting with Oishi-san, we decided to refocus our efforts onto Kageboushi City.
しかしどうして県境を越えてこの書き写しを？
But why cross over to another prefecture entirely? Why Kageboushi City?
別に難癖を申し上げるつもりはありませんが、獅子骨市近隣の町村は他にもあったはずです。
Not to say it was wrong of you to do so, but there must be a couple of places that are closer to Shishibone City.
いっぱいありました。
Yeah, there were plenty.
ただその中でも柿内市は5年前のダム建設騒動以来、ひなみ沢から転居してくるご家族が他と比べても一番多かったんですよ。
But after the dam conflict 5 years ago, more families from Hinamizawa have moved to Kageboushi than any other city.
しかもこの町は見たところ他県だけあって例の大災害に対する関心が全体的に低い感じがします。
Not just that, but the people of the city seems to have less interest in the disaster compared to other prefectures.
それがどういう？
What do you mean by that?
つまりですね、
What he means is,
この町のように安定した都市部に住んでいる人たちなら他と比べても理性的な応対が望めるかと考えたのです。
these people are living in a much more stable environment, so we believe they'll likely be easier to work with than people from towns closer to disaster.
タタリに対する畏怖心が強いとどうしても情報提供に二の足を踏んでしまいますからね。
People with a strong fear of the curse are far less likely to cooperate with our investigation.
はあ、そういうものなんですか。
Huh, so that's how it is.
それにもしもこの災害の背後で組織だった政治的陰謀が本当に動いているとすれば、厳重な情報封鎖と慣行令が敷かれている可能性があります。
Besides, if this disaster was actually part of a greater political conspiracy, there's always a chance that they're already taking control of the narrative and placed a gag order on anyone who may know valuable information.
だとすれば、いずれこの町にもその影響が及んで捜査がやりにくくなるかもしれない。
If that happens to be true, it's only a matter of time before those effects spread to the city and complicate our investigation even further.
ですから一刻も早く。
So, we'd like to get started as soon as possible.
すみません。
I'm sorry.
お気を悪くされるかもしれませんが、
Please don't take this the wrong way. With a tilt of her head, Chief Inspector Manai carefully pondered her words before speaking again.
自分は刑事課の人間なので、公安の方の特に政治レベルの捜査をお手伝いするのは筋が違うかと思います。
I'm a member of the Criminal Investigations Unit, so I don't think I'm qualified to assist in matters of public safety, much less know anything about how to go about investigating political conspiracies.
そもそも話が大きすぎて、いきなり理解するのはいささか。
Even if I did, the story seems so wild that I have a hard time keeping up with what you're saying.
そうですね。
Oh, right.
それに、自分の職務は犯罪事件を捜査することであって、犯罪自体の存在の有無を確かめることではありません。
Besides, as part of the Criminal Investigations Unit, my job is to investigate criminal offenses, not figure out whether a crime happened in the first place.
その点はどうかご理解ください。
So, please keep that in mind.
失礼しました。
I'm sorry for bringing this up then.
つい気持ちがせいてしまって。
Seems like I let my feelings get the best of me here. I'd gotten a little carried away and taken us off topic, so I cleared my throat while trying to pull myself together. Chief Inspector Manai's opinions weren't conservative, but reasonable. Just because I discussed the possibility of conspiracy surrounding the gas disaster in another town, doesn't mean that they can follow up on it, especially when they don't even work in that prefecture. No, what we want to ask her is something else altogether.
ともいちゃんには少し前に看護師衝殺事件の件でご協力お願いしましたよね。
Samoa-chan, I asked for your help a while back regarding the investigation to that nurse's burned corpse.
あの件について何か分かりましたか？
Did you ever learn anything about that?
ええ、少しは。
Yes, a little.
それが？
What about it?
今回の一件はそれとも大きく関わっているんですよ。
It's heavily related to this current case.
4年前からひなみ沢村ではお社様のたたりと言われる殺人事件が毎年起きているんですが、あの衝殺事件もその一連だと私は睨んでいます。
Mysterious murder incidents purported to be a work of Oyoshiro-sama's curse have happened in Hinamizawa Village for 4 years in a row. I'm thinking that the burning case is another example.
そしてあのたたりの数日後に大災害が起こって村人全員が亡くなった。
And, a few days after the curse took place, a massive disaster occurred that killed everyone in that village.
警部が立ち会われた事件と私たちが調べようとしているお社様のたたりによる大災害。
The incident you were present for, and the catastrophic disaster supposedly caused by the curse of Oyoshiro-sama, trying to investigate.
偶然にしては時系列が並びすぎている。
These incidents are lined up too neatly to simply be coincidence.
ですからこの2つの件では共同で捜査を行う方がお互いにとっていろいろと都合がいいかと思います。
Therefore, I think it would be beneficial for both parties if we conducted a joint investigation into these two cases.
なるほど。
I see. Chief Inspector Manai released her fingers and pressed them against her chin in contemplation. Then, while gazing at her now empty cup of coffee, she broke her silence.
自分もあの事件にはどうにも引っかかるものを感じておりました。
You know, that incident has been weighing on my mind for some time now.
その背後にあるものがひなみ沢村のたたりにまつわる可能性があるというのならば、その正体を暴くことは例の衝殺事件に関する手がかりになるかもしれない。
If the true culprit behind the curse in Hinamizawa is also involved in that great disaster, then ascertaining the truth behind everything you've told me may also provide valuable clues to solving the burned corpse incident.
その意味での共同捜査は自分にとっても悪くないお話です。
When you put it that way, a joint investigation doesn't seem like a bad deal to me.
そう言ってもらえると助かります。
I'm glad to hear you say that. Your assistance would save us a lot of trouble.
それに
Besides, Oishi-san and I are outsiders, you could say. Gathering information on whoever lives in this town and what's around the area just based on data compiled in official documents has its setbacks.
私たちには残念ながら土地勘がありません。
We aren't too familiar with this area, unfortunately.
郷に行ってはの例えではありませんが、その状態で見当もなくむやみに捜査を行っても、本来求めるべき正確な情報をつかむことは難しいでしょう。
I wouldn't exactly say we're heading into uncharted waters here, but I'm sure we won't get the accurate information we're looking for if we recklessly start investigating as we are now.
そうですね。
That's true.
それにこの町の人は割と淡白な傾向ですから、普通に聞き込みをしても有効な回答を得るのは結構骨が折れると思います。
Trust me, I know the people in this town tend to be indifferent about what happens around here, so if you don't want to ask the right questions, getting the information you want will be pretty much like pulling teeth. Investigating such a tight-knit community like Hinamizawa is huge a problem. Is huge a problem for law enforcement. That's what it says. People are fiercely loyal to each other above all, which severely limits the amount of information we're able to gather there. But on the other hand, the atmosphere in newly founded communities also has its own issues. When people feel completely indifferent toward their neighbors, they might not pay enough attention to even know any meaningful information in the first place. There have been plenty of times where information gained from each witness is very ambiguous, and in some cases even inaccurate.
あと、よそ者の刑事が好き勝手に捜査を行えば、そちらの刑事課さんにとってもいろいろと問題があるかと思います。
And if people think that we're just a couple of outside police officers sticking our noses into their business, it could pose problems for local detectives as well.
ですから、まずは警部にご了解と、できればご協力もお願いしたいと考えた次第なのです。
Therefore, we'd like to formally request your agreement, and if at all possible, your cooperation, Chief Inspector.
なるほど。
I see.
うちも一課はともかく二課は口やかましい人が多いので、お二人の捜査に難癖をつけることがあるかもしれませんね。
The first division aside, there are plenty of people in the second division that might find countless reasons to object to your investigation.
それについては私の方で何とかします。
But you can leave all of them to me.
助かります。
We're in your debt.
とは言っても、例の事件はお隣の県警さんの管轄ですから。
However, the case you're referring to is actually under the jurisdiction of the neighboring prefecture's police.
所長黙認とはいえ、自分の方で越権行為を働いたことが後々問題になれば、逆に大石さんたちにもご迷惑をおかけするかもしれませんよ。
Even with tacit approval from the chief, if my own overstepping of authority caused problems, it could be nuisance to the two of you down the line instead, couldn't it?
まあそのあたりは杓子定規に考えないで広域捜査の一環ってことでお願いしますよ。
Well, I don't think of that strictly by the book. Consider it part of a wide area investigation instead.
ともいちゃんは腐っても警察庁の広域捜査官の肩書きをお持ちなんでしょ。
Even if your skills have dulled, you're still certified by the National Police Agency as a wide area investigator, right?
ですから私たちの捜査にちょいと口添えをいただけるだけで大助かりなんですがね。
So even if all you can do is put in a good word for our investigation, that'd be a big help.
腐ってもってのが一言余計です。
I think the word dulled was uncalled for. Unsurprisingly, Chief Inspector Manai got irritated and pouted at Oishi-san, sitting next to me. Nevertheless, for a young member of the career group, she had a soft demeanor and not a hint of pride.
わかりました。
Understood.
公安の警視直々と所長命令、それに他ならぬ大石さんからの要請ですからね。
This is a personal request from the higher-ups in public safety, and above all else, a request from Oishi-san too.
自分にできる限りの協力はさせていただきます。
I'll cooperate with you as much as I can. No.
いや助かりますよ。
Oh my, what a great help.
ともいちゃんがいるといないとではこの町での捜査活動のやりやすさが全然違ってきますから。
Our investigation in this town would be completely different without your help, Tomoe-chan.
大げさですよ。
You're exaggerating.
まあそれはいいんですがね。
Well, that's all well and good.
ただ
However,
ただ
however,
だったらなんで
if that's the case,
こんなにも大事なお話をこんなところでやるんですか？
I was about to say, why are they going? Why Angel Mort again? Why would you choose to talk about such an important matter in this place? And explosions go off.
真面目にやる気がないんでしたら自分はここで失礼しますよ。
If you're not going to take this seriously, then I'll be taking my leave right here. Chief Inspector Manai kept her voice down, sticking to her professionalism, but held a hand to her forehead where a blue vein was emerging, and she glared in rage, directly at me. The location couldn't be helped, but maybe it was a little unreasonable.
いや私に言われましてもその
No, even if you ask me, even though the air conditioning was running at full capacity, it didn't stop the sweat from running down my forehead. I wiped my face several times with a handkerchief. Even I, who took pride in the fact that I could tolerate nearly any situation, felt like having a complaint or two to the one who brought us here. This is Angel Mort, a family restaurant. A man stood opposite of Oishi-san, Chief Yamaoki of Kakuji Station. He was the one who told us. It's a famous chain restaurant in Okinomiya, but it also has a location in Kakeichi and advised us to meet here. However, after our brief greetings and introductions out front, the moment I stepped into the store, I began to seriously regret the decision. Most of the decor inside the store was your usual family restaurant fare, but aside from that, it was clearly not normal. First and foremost, the waitress's shocking costumes. It seemed the cut was engineered to challenge the limits of ethics. This is one way of putting it. And they were so clearly designed to attract that crowd, it made me blush just looking their way. And the menu was shocking too. Inside, I saw a colorful parade of girlish, lacy sweets that instantly made my stomach churn. And the majority of the customers in the store spent all their time staring at those two things. In other words, this table with 3 men and 1 career-oriented woman sitting together was drawing a lot of weird looks from the surroundings.
いや
Oh, well...
未来警部はこういう店
Chief Inspector Manai, is this
その初めてですか
your first time in a store like this?
ええ、初めてですよ。
Yes. Never before.
当然でしょ。
Isn't that obvious?
いけませんか？
Is that a problem?
いや、すみません。
No, sorry. I tried asking that to smooth over the tense atmosphere, but it seemed to have backfired, so I lowered my head in shame. But even so, why should I be the one to apologize? And then, with timing that felt like pouring oil on a fire, a waitress walked over to our table.
お待たせしました。
Thank you for waiting.
ストロベリーサンダーボルトパフェお二つ。
Who
ど
ordered
ちらにお受けいたしますか？
Who ordered the 2 strawberry thunderbolt parfaits?
おお、来た来た。
Oh, right here, right here.
待ってましたよ。
I've been waiting for this. Let the old man have his little treats. You know what I mean? He's too old for this. Or he's not. That makes it sound like I'm in disgrades. He's so old he deserves his treats. That's how I'll put it. He's been on the job for so long. He gets to dictate where they held their important meetings.
それは
Let him have
私
it.
と。
That's for me.
私です。
And me as well.
かしこまりました。
Certainly. With no regard for the tense mood, Oishi-san turned his attention to the waitress holding the 2 massive parfaits, and Chief Yamaoki, sitting across from him, rose his hand to signal her. The employees must be trained to be attentive. The girl in the frilly dress placed the 2 parfaits in front of them without breaking a smile, then continued to smile as she walked away. Chief Inspector Minai and I felt so embarrassed we wanted to run away. It was a sight to behold. 2 filthy old men stuffing their faces into parfaits. Creepy. Too creepy.
いやいや、噂では聞いていましたが、柿内のエンジェルモートにはこんなスペシャルメニューがあるんですね。
Well, I'd heard rumors, but the Kakichi Angel Mart really does have a special menu.
こりゃ確かに食べ応えがありそうですよ。
And it looks pretty filling too.
量だけじゃなく味もなかなかのもんなんですよ。
It's not just the portion sizes. Taste is fantastic too.
私も勧められた時は半信半疑だったんですが、今ではすっかり常連になってます。
I was a little skeptical when I first heard about this place, but now I'm a regular customer.
ほう、そりゃ楽しみだ。
Ah, how wonderful.
どれどれ？
Let me give it a try. After saying that, Oishi-san grabbed a spoon and took a bite. Then after a quick taste, he licked his lips and tapped his forehead.
この生クリームの濃厚な味。
This fresh cream tastes so rich.
そして甘すぎず、しっとりと馴染んだアイスクリームが口どけも良くていい感じです。
And the ice cream is perfectly moist, but not too sweet, so it feels great as it melts in your mouth.
それに何より、この大きなイチゴがまたジューシーなことと言ったら。
And most importantly, this huge strawberry looks so juicy.
こりゃ、そこいらの店で売ってるもんじゃありませんね。
They don't sell this variety at the shop in my area, do they?
おう、わかりますか。
Oh, you can tell?
いや、実は私も気になって店長に尋ねてみたんですよ。
Actually, I became curious enough to ask the store manager.
そしたら、これは最近愛知県で新種登録された店長の独自のルートで仕入れている一品中の一品らしくてね。
This is a new item that originated in Aichi Prefecture. Best of the best. The manager apparently gets it through his own special trade route.
粒も普通のやつより大きくて甘くて、通常は贈答用に使われるほどのものだそうです。
Grains are also bigger and sweeter than usual. Apparently, they're often used as gifts.
なるほど。
Sound like he was going, nom nom nom. I see.
いや、そんな革命的な食べ物とこんなところで出会えるとは、私の世界もまだまだ狭いということですね。
Wow, after finding such revolutionary food here, I'm wondering if I need to expand my horizons.
いやいや、私だってこの年になっても新しい発見の連続で毎日が心洗われる思いです。
Of course, in my old age, it feels refreshing to try new things every day.
やはり時には自分の枠から出て違う環境に飛び込んでみるのも必要なことですな。
Sometimes it's necessary to leap out of your comfort zone and into a new environment. Alright, everyone. That's enough of that. A deep, threatening voice echoed across Oishi-san and Chief Yamaoki's bubbly conversation. I turned to the source of that voice and immediately looked away.
ハニャだ。ハニャがいる。
How frightening.
どうしたね、見ない警部。
What's wrong, Chief Inspector Manai?
君も欲しいのか？
Did you want some too?
いりません。
That's not it.
というか大事な話をなんでこんな店でしなきゃいけないんですか？
I want to know why we have to discuss such an important matter in the store.
いや、デリケートな内容だから外で話した方がいいって。
Well, it's a delicate subject, so we'd better off discussing somewhere outside the station.
君も了解したじゃないか。
You understand, right?
ええ、了解はしました。
Yes, I get that.
でもまさか場所がファミレスだとは思いませんでした。
But I didn't think you meant a family restaurant.
当然でしょ？
Isn't that obvious? Of course.
正気ですか、所長？
Are you insane, Chief?
こんな派手派手の人の多いところで話すくらいなら署の方が何億倍もマシです。
It'd be 100 times better to discuss this at the station instead of this place filled with scantily clad people.
つうか非常識にも程があると思いませんか？
Hell, don't you think irrationality has its limits?
いや、別に。
No, not really.
そんな返答出てくる方がおかしいでしょ。
Your response is even more troubling.
仮にも機密情報をこういう場所で話すことの危険性をもっと考えてください。
Please consider the danger of discussing confidential information in a place like this.
まあともいちゃん。
Now, Tomoe-chan.
ほらよく言うでしょ。
Isn't there a thing they always say?
木を隠すなら森の中ってね。こういう場所で話す方が意外にわからないものなんですよ。
Hiding the trees in the forest. No one would expect us to have a discussion in a place like this, right?
その木がクリスマスツリー並みにキンキラキンだったら全然意味ないでしょ。
That won't work at all if the tree is a gaudy, fully decorated Christmas tree. Breathing erratically and still struggling to restrain herself from shouting too much, Chief Inspector Manai verbally assaulted the two of them. Indeed, the parable was a strange thing to say. And then,
見ない警部。
Chief Inspector Manai,
それは浅はかというものだ。
that's thoughtless of you to say.
は？
Huh?
周りを見てみたまえ。
Take a look around.
私たちに関心を向けている気配を持った客が声の届く範囲に果たしているかな。
Are any of the customers within vocal range interested in us? After Chief Yamaoki said that, I carefully surveyed the people around us, and surprisingly enough, they seemed so engrossed in their conversations that they paid no heed to their surroundings. Moreover, the table that Chief Yamaoki selected for us was situated in a blind spot relative to the other seats, so the table surface wasn't visible at all. Most of the conversations around us were about the cakes and the waitresses' costumes, and they had strange accents and intonation.
この前手に入れた限定フィギュアの出来が素晴らしいんだな。
The limited edition figure I got before this is fantastic.
ボディとスカートが分離できるようになっていて。
It's designed so you can separate the skirt from the body.
なんと
What?
そんな仕様は当初どこにも書いていなかったでござるよ。
That wasn't listed anywhere in the original specifications.
にょほほほ。
Yeah.
ただ手に入れたのみで満足することなく、造形師の仕込んだ我々への挑戦を見事クリアしてこそ、フィギュアマスターへの道が開かれるのであります。
Simply acquiring a figure is not enough. Path of the figure master will only reveal itself to those who can overcome the challenges charged to us by the molding makers.
その魔改造ぜひ見てみたいなり。
That devilish modification. I would do anything to see it.
隠された秘宝を皆で分け合うのは同志としての義務なりよ。
Or isn't it your duty to share your hidden treasures with your compatriots? The meaningless conversations went on and on like that. It obviously wasn't cipher or code, so for the sake of my sanity, I'll pretend not to hear it. In any case, I could understand that Oishi-san and Chief Yamaoki had given some proper thought to the situation when choosing this location. At least that's what I told myself. However, even as a man, I had trouble enduring it. For a young woman not acquainted with such a world, this could very well be a living hell. Were these two truly the sort of people who could eat together comfortably here? Or were their heads just full of lead? Which was it?
おや、 どうしましたか、赤坂警視。
Oh my. Something wrong, Inspector Casca?
いや、
No. No, not really.
すみませんね、赤坂警視。
Sorry, Inspector Casca.
うちの南警部はちょっと融通が利かないところがたまに傷でして。
Chief Inspector Minai here is a little inflexible, so she could be a fly in the ointment at times.
たまには世界を広げるためにもこういうところに連れ出すことも一つの勉強かと思うのですよ、私は。
I think that studying new environments like this is an important part of expanding one's horizons.
こういう異世界で一体何を学べと言うんですか？
What the hell can you learn from a place like this? No.
そりゃもちろん女性としての魅力とは一体何かということにつきますよ。
Well, what exactly the charm of a lady is, of course.
これだけの男子諸君を引きつけてやまないもの、それはデザートが織りなす甘酸っぱい空間と色気いっぱいのウェイトレスさんの姿。
The thing that keeps all these boys coming back is the interweaving of the sweetness and the desserts with the spice of the colorful, sexy waitress outfits.
ともいちゃんもよーく見ておけば、いずれ好きな殿方ができた時にコロリッと落とす技がおのずと理解できるというものです。
Tomoe-chan, if you look closely, you can learn the technique that'll be perfect for bringing a man to his knees once you find a guy you like.
いやいや、大石さんのおっしゃること全くもってその通りです。
My goodness, what Oishi-san says is exactly right.
もともとの素材が超一級である以上、南警部は
Oh,
も
no.
っとその良さを磨くべきなんですよ。
Chief Inspector Minai, you already have all the necessary ingredients, so you should refine those aspects some more.
実際、血は争えないというか、さすが彼女のおね。
You really can't fight blood, huh? Just what I would expect from her sister.
大石さん、この話はなかったことに。
Oishi-san, let's pretend this conversation never happened.
失礼します。
Please excuse me.
ちょっと南警部。
Oh wait, Chief Inspector Minai! Chief Inspector Minai left in a huff, so I raced out to the store after her, eventually managing to persuade her to calm down. Even so, I'll say it again, why should I be the one to do this? It's not fair. And by the time we made it back to our table, the two parfaits were completely empty.
ウェイトレスさん、
Oh, waitress!
すみませんがこのパフェもう一つおかわりしてもよろしいでしょうか。
Excuse me, could I have another parfait?
いやいや、大石さん、ここに来て同じメニューを頼んで、ただ食べるだけではあまりにも芸がない。
My goodness, Oishi-san. It's uninspired to order the same thing off the menu and simple eating.
実はね、警部には内緒でしたが、おすすめのオプションサービスがあるんですよ。
Actually, don't tell the Chief Inspector about this, but there's a special service option.
例えば、
For example...
ほう
Oh. Oh. Oh, really?
こんなサービスがあったんですか？
Do they really have a service?
の
Have such a service.
次はこいつでどんといっちゃいましょ
Oh, oh, me next, let's do it!
う。では
Then,
所長、
Oishi-san, Chief Yamaoki, what did that service entail? That will have to be left to the imagination, but of course, seeing the way the two of them acted filled me with murderous intent.
私だって島じゃなかったら食べていたのに、こいつらくそ。
If I wasn't...
南警部、何か？
Chief Inspector Minai, what's wrong?
いえ、別に。
Oh, it's nothing. Thursday, June 30th, 1983. The next day, the three of us were heading toward a certain place in Chief Inspector Minai's car. We were traveling to the Kageboushi service area, a location where the nurse Mio Takano's burned corpse was first witnessed. The Kageboushi service area runs up the main highway near the prefectural border. As we entered, I noticed a lot of vehicles parked in the vicinity.
結構な車の数ですね。
That's a lot of cars, huh?
今日って平日じゃありませんでしたか？
Isn't today a weekday?
そうですね。
Indeed.
今日は特にいっぱいのようですね。
Seems particularly crowded today.
あっちが空いたかな。
Oh, I wonder if that's an open spot over there. Once Chief Inspector Nye caught a glimpse of an empty space, she carefully maneuvered the car into the spot. Then she shut off the engine and used the radio to confirm our arrival at the Kageboushi service area. As I crawled out of the back seat, I could hear the roaring voice of the cicadas in every direction. I could feel the sunlight burning my skin. The strong, early morning sunshine was beating down on the asphalt, gradually heating the surrounding air.
お疲れ様でした。
Thank you for your assistance.
何か飲み物を買ってきましょうか。
Can I buy you a drink?
いえ、大丈夫です。
No, I'm fine.
それにしてもたくさんの人がいますね。
Anyway, there are a lot of people around here. I turned to the shops nearby and let out a sigh. Most of the people seemed to be men dressed like truck drivers, but some also looked like families.
ここは上りも下りも大都市との中間地点に当たりますからね。
If you go up or down the road from here, you reach the city. This is the midpoint between two major cities.
次のサービスエリアまで結構ありますし、ちょうどいい小休止の場所になっているんです。
There are several other service areas, but this one is a convenient location to take a break.
それに最近増築されて、食事処や案内所、ガソリンスタンドに郵便ポストまであるんですよ。
And it was recently expanded. Now it's a restaurant, an information booth, a gas station, and a post office, or a post box.
ポスト？
Post box?
一体こんな場所で誰が使うんですかね？
Who would possibly use that in a place like this?
ちゃんと届くんですか？
Would it even make it to the destination?
さあ、自分もそれは。
Well, I've never used it myself,
機会があったら今度試してみますよ。
but if I get the chance, I'll try it next time. After saying that, Chief Inspector and I turned to the buildings beside us. There was a red post box there, but the color faded from weather exposure.
他にもここのスタンドはガソリン税の地域差で高速道路なのに隣の県よりも安いですからね。
Besides, there are regional differences in the gas tax, so it's cheaper here than it is in the neighboring prefecture.
ここから先はしばらく給油できるところもないし、下り方面からの利用客で結構賑わっています。
It's a long distance south of here before the next opportunity to refuel, so it's quite crowded with travelers heading that direction.
私も時々利用しますから。
I stop here too from time to time.
そんなに違うんですか？
Oh, is it really that big of a difference?
ええ、リッター7円も。
Yeah, saves an extra 7 yen per liter.
なるほど。
Ah, I see. That sounds surprisingly frugal. Wonder if I'm just living a luxurious life. There was a small observatory standing on the edge of a cliff a short distance from the main buildings of the service area. The wire mesh guardrails at eye level were unpleasant to look at, but I was able to see far off in the distance thanks to the high elevation overlooking an open space.
通報した会社員の話では、ここから山火事を発見したそうです。
An employee allegedly discovered the mountain fire from here.
あそこの少し黒っぽくなっているところがその場所になります。
It was over in that slightly darker region. After saying that, Chief Inspector Nye pointed to the base of a far-off mountain. Indeed, it looked a little out of place next to the surrounding greenery. Nevertheless, it just looked like a black spot or stain, unless you looked really closely.
しかし、その目撃者はどうしてこの場所から火事の現場を見ることができたんでしょう？
But why did they witness see the fire from here?
ここって自動販売機の置き場や手洗い所からも結構離れていますよね。
This platform is rather far from the vending machines and the bathrooms, right? I suddenly turned my head away and looked up. The outside lights were a little far away. A little far away and hard to see. Even though it's plenty bright in the daytime, you wouldn't be able to see anything around here in the middle of the night. But despite all the trouble, why would someone take the time to park in the parking lot and visit this observatory?
ええ、
Right.
自分もその疑問がありましたので尋ねてみました。
I wondered that as well, so I asked.
それによると、用を足そうと手洗い所に行ったら掃除中だったので我慢ができずここまで来てとのことです。
Allegedly, the witness tried to go to the bathroom only to find it closed for cleaning, so they came here to relieve themselves.
ほう。
Oh?
じゃあ今ともえちゃんが立っているあたりがその後なのかもしれませんね。
Then maybe you're standing in traces of that right now, Tomo-chan. Chief Inspector Minai instantly reeled back with a confused expression and looked down at her feet. But as soon as she realized Oishi-san was joking around, her face flushed all the way to her ears, and she began to shout. Oishi-san! No! Sorry. Good grief. After letting out a sigh, I turned toward the shops. Am I just overthinking an ordinary psychological phenomenon? Physiological phenomenon. Still, a small feeling that something was out of place remained, like a thorn in my side. It nestled on the back of my chest and wouldn't disappear. Well, all joking aside, let's move on to the main subject. After a brief chuckle and lighting a second cigarette, Oishi-san nonchalantly cut in. After seeing that, Chief Inspector Minai turned to face him with a slightly annoyed expression, then cleared her throat. She opened the black bag in her hands and pulled out a document.
まず先日大石さんから依頼のあったお隣の県警本部の鑑識報告が改ざんされていたかどうかの話ですが。
First off, at Oishi-san's request, I checked whether the forensic report from the prefectural police headquarters was tampered with.
ほぼ9割以上間違いがなさそうです。
I'm almost 90% confident. There's no mistaking this.
その中のラベル07の資料を見ていただけますか?
Can you take a look at the information labeled 07? I took the files from her and carefully extracted the file with a clear 07 label on the front. Inside, I found a copy of Mio Takano's autopsy report, written by the forensic team.
告発はしないとの約束で、沢口署の松岡君が大石さんがおっしゃっていた鉛筆書きの資料以上に確実なやつを見せてくれました。
After promising Matsuoka-kun of Sawaguchi Station that I wouldn't make any indictments, he showed proof more definitive than the pencil marks Oishi-san brought up.
くしゃくしゃに丸めてくずかごに捨てられたものを彼がこっそり保管していたそうです。
He secretly kept this paper after it was crumpled up and thrown into the trash. There were unique handwritten characters around the entry column. Among them, 2 items were surrounded by large red marks: discovery time estimated 24 hours after death, and estimated time of death June 18th, 10 o'clock.
確かに日付が1日違っていますね。
Indeed, it's off by 1 day.
ただの書き損じではないのですか?
Couldn't that just be a transcription error?
ゴミとして捨てられていた書類に証明能力はありませんが。
A document that was thrown in the trash doesn't really hold up as evidence.
その報告書には担当者以外にその上司である主任、そして鑑識課長の捺印があります。
The document bears a stamp of not only the investigation lead, but also their supervisor and even the section chief.
書き損じの書類に責任長がハンコをしたりはしないと思います。
I don't think the people in charge would allow a document containing errors to make it that far up the chain of command.
なるほど。
I see. Chief Inspector Minai raised a valid point. In other words, the report before the rewrite was valid. The nurse, Mio Takano, who was supposedly killed on June 19th, may have actually died on the day before, June 18th.
しかし、高野美代は確かに19日の綿流しの当日、会場のあちこちで目撃されています。
However, eyewitnesses claim they saw Mio Takano at the Wanagashi Festival on the 19th.
私も境内の警戒中、2度ほどその姿を見かけました。
I myself saw her twice while monitoring the premises.
じゃあ、私が見たのは彼女の幽霊ってことですか?
Then, are you saying the woman I saw was actually a ghost?
あるいは焼殺されたのは高野美代以外の別人か。
Or maybe the person who was burned wasn't Mio Takano, but someone else.
ただし、この可能性は非常に低そうです。
However, that possibility seems very unlikely.
歯の治療跡などで遺体は高野美代本人だと断定できました。
Examination of dental records confirmed the body belonged to Mio Takano.
でもそれって死亡推定時刻を改ざんした例の鑑識さんの見立てですよね。
But doesn't that mean it's the opinion of the forensic investigator who altered the estimated time of death?
だったら少々信憑性の面では心もとないと思いますが。
I think that would hurt the credibility of the whole thing.
いえ、それにつきましては自分が直接確かめましたから、ほぼ間違いないと思います。
No, I checked that myself directly, so I think there's no mistake.
沖宮の歯科医から取り寄せたカルテと照合して、これを。
I compared the charts from the Okuniya dentist. Take a look. After saying that, Chief Inspector pulled some photos and charts out of her bag. A bit of a shock ran through me as I looked at the grotesque photograph, but I could clearly see 2 treated cavities in the back row of teeth, and they perfectly matched up with the locations listed in the dental records.
では渡流の番にいた高野美代はやはり幽霊だ。
Then the Miyotaka present on the night of Watanagashi was a ghost after all.
なんて言いませんよね。
That's not what you're saying, is it?
まさかご冗談を。
Of course not. Don't be ridiculous.
ただ死後硬直を遅らせる方法はいろいろとありますが、早める方法はあまり考えられない。
However, while there are several ways to delay rigor mortis, I can't think of many ways to hasten it.
ですから一日のズレを作り出したトリックを暴き出すことができれば、犯人像を絞る大きな手がかりになると思います。
So, I think we'd gain a major clue toward narrowing down the culprit if we could identify the trick beyond that one-day gap.
正式な管轄は沢口署になりますので大っぴらにはできませんが、この件では引き続き捜査を行うつもりです。
There are limits on what I can do since this case officially falls under Sawaguchi Station's jurisdiction, but I will do what I can to continue this investigation.
よろしくお願いしますね。
Thank you for your help.
ん？
Just then, I heard a ringing coming from Chief Inspector Manai's car parked around the corner. She leaned her body in through the driver's side window and grabbed the receiver, then came back to us after exchanging a few words over the radio.
どうしました？
Did something happen?
はい、部下の藤田巡査部長からです。
Yes, that was my subordinate, Sergeant Fujita.
柿内市に住むひなみ沢村出身者を一通り確認できたとの報告でした。
He reported that we were able to confirm all the former Hinamizawa residents in Kakuichi City.
これで最近10年以内に引っ越してきた74世帯全部裏が取れたみたいです。
There are 74 households in total, all within the last 10 years.
もうですか。
Wow, already?
早いですね。
That was fast. My eyes were open wide. Couldn't hide my surprise. Chief Inspector Manai had a bit of a proud smile on her face.
所長はあんな感じでアンポンタンですが、うちの署の人間はみんな優秀なんです。
The chief is a bit of a nitwit, but everyone else at my station is excellent.
つい先月も本部長表彰をいただきましたから。
Just last month, we received an award from the general manager.
それはすごい。
That's amazing. Part of what I thought was amazing was how proud Chief Inspector Manai was of her subordinates and colleagues over herself. She seemed truly happy to boast about her co-workers' environment rather than her own results and awards.
それにしてもどうして柿内市にはひなみ沢の出身者がこんなにも多いのでしょう。
Still though, just why are there so many people who moved from Hinamizawa to Kakuichi City?
他の近隣の町と比べても結構な数があって少し驚いたのですが。
Even compared to the other neighboring towns, that number is a little surprising.
もともと柿内市は新興の住宅街ですから、他地域からの流入が多いみたいです。
Kakuichi City is a relatively young residential district, so it's apparently receiving a lot of inflows from other areas.
それに加えてやはりこの高速道路が一役買っていると思います。
On top of that, I think the highway is a major factor. As Chief Inspector Manai saw it, migrant worker families and households who felt inconvenienced by country life had a lot of incentives to move to Kakuichi City. First, the transportation network was good. The highway was well maintained, and the commuter rail line had many express stops, making it very easy to get home. On top of that, land prices were rather reasonable. Though it had been growing rapidly in recent years, it was still an emerging residential area, so it was easy for people on a somewhat stable income to live well, especially compared to the center of a big city. And then, there was job security. In a city grown to become a commuter town, you'd hardly run into any problems finding work, unless you were really strict about your profession and commuting distance. Thanks to all that, it was a very attractive town for people leaving Hinamizawa village. Still, when the investigation in Okinomiya fell apart and I had to find a backup candidate, this town was strictly the next logical choice, so I never expected to find such an excellent collaborator here. It was truly encouraging.
それじゃあ赤坂さん、早速そのリストを拝見しに参りましょうか。
Well then, Akasuka-san, shall we hurry up and take a look at that list?
ね
Yes.
え、見ない警部、お願いできますか。
Chief Inspector Manai, would you please?
了解しました。
Understood. I hope that this town, with its favorable conditions, would hold the key I need to unlock everything. I'm feeling all congested all of a sudden. I'm probably gonna have to take a BRB here before reading the next section. Yeah, let me do that. I'll do that here. I'll be back shortly. Give me just, a few minutes here. Okay. Sorry about that lengthy. I'm back. Lengthy, step aside. Where is it? Whoop. Here we go. Friday, July 1st, 1983. Then, the following day. Based on the list provided by Kakuji Station, Oishi-san and I began to investigate the Hinamazawa natives living in Kakuji City. There were a total of 74 domestic families from Hinamazawa currently living in Kakuji City. While it wasn't a lot, it would still be impossible to get through all of them in our short time frame. So, on Oishi-san's suggestion, we narrowed the list down to the households who relocated from Hinamazawa after the dam conflict began 5 years ago, and we began our investigation from there. But that was still quite a few people. Thankfully, Chief Inspector and I agreed to cooperate with this investigation, so that somewhat reduced the weight of the load, but it would still be a challenge to burn through the entire list.
ここが馬宿町か。
This is Umayado Town, huh? I arrived in Umayado Town, where the subjects on the list were relatively concentrated. There was a large station nearby in an emerging residential area where they recently constructed a new shopping district. While exiting the station, I held a map in hand and searched for the target's house.
確かこの辺りのはずだが。
I'm sure it's around here. Umayado Town apparently wasn't designed systematically, so the roads were complex. On top of that, the many similarly styled buildings made it hard to catch my bearings, so I could easily get lost if I got careless. Oh. Just as I thought, my eyes stopped at a dead end, supporting my fears, so I retraced my steps back to the main avenue. Oh. I saw 2 housewives holding supermarket bags walk past. I felt relieved when I saw them, and I decided to ask for directions.
すみません。
Excuse me?
この辺りに畠山さんのお宅があるはずなんですが。
I'm looking for Hatakeyama-san's house. Should be around here somewhere. Huh? Their smiles vanished, and they made strange expressions as they looked around and stared at me. Even though I was a stranger, the reaction seemed unnatural.
ご存知ありませんか？
Do you know them?
畠山一馬さんのお宅を探しているんですが。
I'm searching for Kazuma Hatakeyama-san's house. It was the name of an old man who moved from Hinamazawa to Umayado last year. After hearing that, the housewives with the longer hair pointed toward a place around the corner.
そうですか。
I see.
どうも。
Thanks.
畠山さんってあの気味悪いお宅でしょ？
Hatakeyama-san lives in that creepy house, right?
あなたどういう関係の方ですか？
Are you related to them?
いや。
No, no.
昔の知人で。
Just an old acquaintance. The two of them backed away with looks of disgust on their faces, like they were trying to distance themselves from something dirty. For the time being, I bowed my head and walked away, feeling unhappy. Even so, I couldn't help but wonder what they were so spooked about. With that question in the back of my mind, I made my way around the corner they directed me to. And then, I discovered why the housewives called the house creepy.
No.
What? It was a strikingly bizarre sight. When I saw the Hatakeyama house, one thing immediately jumped into my eyes. The life-size, human-shaped white paper figures. 5 of them were hanging from a persimmon tree in the garden, fluttering like Tanabata decorations. Each bore the name of a family member. They were like human effigies, with each containing a person's name handwritten on the middle of the paper. Kazuma Hatakeyama, an old man from Hinamazawa who should be turning 70 soon. The one hanging next to it bore the name of his son, Masao, and the figure belonging to Masao's wife, Yoshiko, was hanging on the next branch over. And then, there were 2 smaller figures bearing the names Aoi and Kentaru. Checking against the list, those were the names of the family's grandchildren, who were 10 and 5 years old respectively.
5人の名前の人型。
5 names on human dolls. The papers containing the names of the entire family fluttered in the wind, like regular strips of paper. Flutter, 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 flutter. No, those 5 pieces weren't the only ones. Looking around, I saw separate sets of 5 paper figures hanging everywhere. They were in the small garden plants too, and around the neck of a petunia blooming in a planter. I also noticed peculiar letters written on the outer wall of the house. Bold black ink characters were written all about. They were difficult to read because they were scribbled and faded, but with enough effort I was able to read them. "O benevolent one, great god Oishiro, grant us this purity." cleanse us with purity, hear us, your fear will cleanse us. Incomprehensible words, like a magic spell. Could it be some sort of Shinto prayer? The name Oishiro-sama was also written on the gate post, the gate door, and so on, as if to fill every crevice with a prayer.
Oyashiro-sama, Oyashiro-sama.
Oishiro-sama, Oishiro-sama. At that moment, the voice of the cicadas was drowned out by a low, muffled sound coming from an unknown location. Not this again. Here on God's earth we've brewed your sacred wine for generations. We pledge ourselves to you. Only Only the unfaithful will feel fear. May your subjugation give us peace of mind. Hear this. Great God, Oyashiro, your blessings give us strength. The hoarse, unnatural voice of an old man echoed from inside the house. I struggled to keep my dark thoughts in check, but I calmly pushed the doorbell. After waiting for a while, a man in his mid-40s opened the door just a crack. May I ask who this is? That was probably the son, Masao Hatakeyama. He seemed to be alarmed and turned his attention to me. The prayer from the back of the house sounded louder and more clear than before. Are you Masao Hatakeyama? Yes. And you are? Allow me to introduce myself. When I showed him my police badge, Masao suddenly became very frightened. He jumped back and his complexion changed. It was openly suspicious behavior. He was acting like he had something to hide. What are the police here for? Something inside my house? Oh, no. I just want to speak with you. Masao seemed restless. He was fidgeting and his eyes were running left and right. I wondered what was wrong. What could he be so afraid of? What did you need to talk about? About your family. I heard you were from Hinamizawa. I have nothing to say about that. I must ask you to leave. As soon as I said that, he opened his bloodshot eyes wide and slammed the door shut with a menacing look. Immediately afterwards, I heard the rough sound of the door locking. The rejection was far beyond my expectations, so I could only stand there in shock. I could still hear the low voice of the prayer from inside the house. Great God Oishiro, great God Oishiro. Nestled in the shrine, I see your work unfinished. Great God Oishiro. Great God Oishiro, I am humbled by the depth of your grace. Always, always. He continued to repeat those strange words. No wonder the neighbors were so creeped out. Anyway, even though he left Hinamizawa, he still lived in fear of the curse tied to that disaster. Was the existence of Oishiro-sama so deeply rooted in their hearts? I suppose I should head out. There's nothing else I can do here. I let out a sigh and made my way to the gate, but found a woman in her late 30s and a young girl standing there.
Mama?
Mama? Since they appear to be returning home, those two must be Masao's wife, Yoshiko, and their daughter, Aoi. A school bag was on her little back, and based on how nicely Yoshiko was dressed, I could speculate that she and her daughter just got back from a parent-teacher conference or something at school.
どなたですか?
Who are you? Just like Masao, Yoshiko cautiously looked over my whole body. The girl next to her curiously looked up at her mother.
うちに何か
Did you need something from my house? Yoshiko Hatakeyama, I presume.
それが何か？
Yes. What about it?
あなたはお嬢さんの葵ちゃんだね。
And are you Aoi-chan, little lady?
うん。
Yeah. After Aoi answered, she immediately hid behind Yoshiko. She was timidly staring at me, as though she wanted to ask how I knew her name.
私こういうものなんですが。
Allow me to introduce myself. Huh? When I showed Yoshiko my police badge, her expression completely changed. She reacted just like Masao.
何のご用でしょうか？
Did you need something?
うちのものが何か？
Something from my family?
ちょっとですね。お話を伺いたいと。
I just want to talk to you for a moment. Yoshiko glared at me for a while. Aoi continued clinging to her mother's waist with a frown on her face.
何のお話でしょうか？
What did you need to talk about?
こちらのご家族は
About this family.
ひなみ沢出身だと。
And Hinamizawa.
話すことは何もございません。
There's nothing to say about that.
お引き取りください。
I must ask you to leave. Then, as soon as the word Hinamizawa came out, Yoshiko pushed me away, grabbed her daughter's hand, and headed toward the entrance. Thinking that reaction was excessive, I immediately rushed over and looked her in the eyes.
ちょっと待ってください。
Please, wait a minute.
私はただお話を伺いたいだけなんです。
I just want to speak with you.
お時間は取らせませんから。どうか。
Please, I won't take much of your time. Yoshiko tried to pull the keys out of her bag to unlock the front door, but she was in too much of a hurry and fumbled with the keys. Aoi continued tightly gripping her mother's hand, looking up at me with a frightened expression. Her innocent face overlapped with Miyuki's for a second, and I suddenly gasped. Then, just when she drew her hand away from Yoshiko and looked away with an uncomfortable expression.
おじちゃん。警察の人？
Mister, you're with the police?
ああ。
Huh? Yes. After hearing that unexpected question from the child, I looked back but struggled to find the words to reply. Looking closely, her eyes weren't just filled with the fear from a moment ago, but also seemed to be trying to say something.
おじちゃん。
Mister,
おじちゃんは悪い人を捕まえに来たの？
did you come here to arrest a bad guy?
いや、
Huh?
違うよ。
No, that's not it.
私たちは困った人を助けに来ているんだ。
We're coming here to try and help people in need. Aoi's eyes wondered in thought after hearing that. Then she lifted her head as though she had decided something.
あのね。
葵ちゃん、
Aoi-chan,
何も言わなくていいの。
you don't need to say anything. Unfortunately, the moment Aoi opened her mouth, Yoshiko interrupted by yelling at her. The threatening attitude caused her to cower and tremble. What the hell happened to the people in his house? It wasn't just Yoshiko. This girl knew something too. And in my eyes, the way she nervously looked up at me seemed like she was suppressing the urge to say something.
早く、葵ちゃん。
Hurry up, Aoi-chan. Oh. The mother finally succeeded in unlocking the door and dragged Aoi into the house. The front door made a terrible sound as it slammed shut. Then I could hear the sound of it violently locking and the chain being set.
何なんだ。
What was that? The neighborhood grew quiet again. I was stunned for a while by what had happened, but with no other options, I let out a dreary sigh and turned around. But just then, I sensed the peculiar presence of another person, so I hid in the nearby alley. There was nobody there. The presence I sensed a moment ago was just an illusion, and it faded away. Thinking that over, I stopped for a while to carefully listen to my surroundings. But of course, I could only hear the howl of the cicadas and the faint sounds coming from the back of the Hatakeyama house.
お社の大神、お社の大神。
Great God of Yashiro, great God of Yashiro.
これのカムどこにおわす、かけまくも賢き、お社の大神。
Nestled in the shrine, I see your work unfinished. Great God of Yashiro.
お社の大神の広き厚きお恵みをかたじけなみ祭りかしこみかしこみ。
Great God, O issue, I am humbled by the depth of your grace. Always, always. It was a deep voice of the old man, Kazuma Hachikama, still reciting that prayer. I checked several other houses afterwards. However, no one was home, or at least they were pretending not to be home. Either way, there was nobody for me to question. It's my favorite thing to do. Someone comes knocking at your door, just pretend not to be home. Never answer the door. It's never going to be something you like. It's going to be someone trying to sell you something, or some religious people, or internet selling service provider people for some reason. Although I haven't gotten one of those in a long time. There was a stretch. There was like a 6-month stretch like a couple years back where I swear I would get like 2 people a week knocking my apartment, like soliciting, like trying to sell like internet things. I'm like, no. It was so frequent. And like one time I answered the door and I was like, do you guys know like how often you guys are, because it was always different people. Same company, but different people. Like, you know, you just get dropped. I don't know what their system is, but I assume they just get, like, dropped off at an apartment complex to try to sell, right? And I was like, do you guys... One time I opened the door, and it was a while ago, so I'm trying to remember exactly what I asked. But I was like, do you guys know how often you guys are, like, here and knocking on doors and stuff? Like, and I think what I gleaned from the information I got was, like, no, they weren't aware. Like, obviously, it's just a system where it's, like, I'd imagine... right, it's something along the lines of like the internet provider servicing out like this thing where people go solicit and knock on doors, try to sell it, but like there's no like checks to make sure like they're not redoing the same area over and over and over again. And it's like different people or different like the people that came on Monday aren't aware of the people that came in on Thursday kind of thing. And so you're just constantly being bombarded. But that hasn't, I don't know, they just stopped coming after a while, which is great. Like lately. Obnoxious. Door-to-door sales or like solicitations for sales and stuff like that is just, I pity those people. I feel bad for them. Not a glamorous job. It's a job, I guess. But it's also obnoxious to have to deal with. I feel the same way about those people. So this is my old man yells at cloud type rant, but like the people that are like stationed at grocery stores to like try to sell you at like a little table thing or get you to enter some survey raffle thing or whatever. They try to sell you stuff. That should be illegal. I'm at a grocery store to buy groceries. I'm buying food I have to buy at this grocery store thing, you know? Why is it that they allow people to try to sell and yell at you stuff while inside of a grocery store? Makes no sense. The day I own a grocery store, that's never happening. That's not happening. Some fantasy of having and owning a grocery store. At the end of the day, I returned to Kakichi Police Station. On the way back to the temporary desk Chief Inspector Manai set up for me, I noticed Oishi-san chatting with a woman in the break room. Sound like the voice of the woman I spoke to on the radio earlier, Chief Inspector Manai's sister, Madoka-san. Thanks for all your hard work. Welcome back, Akasaka-san. Whoa, you're really sweating. Madoka-san rushed to her feet and grabbed a damp towel out of the fridge. I accepted it with thanks and pressed it against my sweltering face. The cold towel felt soothing and refreshing. Alright, Kuro-chan. See you later. Yeah, we can talk more next time. No. Madoka waved to Oishi-san and bowed to me, then headed out of the break room. After that send-off, Oishi-san let out a tired sigh and lit a cigarette. It was pretty hot today, huh? But they're calling for rain tomorrow. Yeah.
お邪魔してしまったみたいで。
Sorry if I interrupted anything just now. I bought 2 cans of coffee from the vending machine and sat one in front of Oishi-san. He gave me a confused look for a moment as if he didn't understand what I meant, but he quickly figured it out and smiled bashfully while waving his hands.
赤坂さん、それちょっとお気遣いが過ぎるってやつですよ。
You were always a little bit too considerate, weren't you?
私とまどかちゃんはそういうのじゃありませんから。
Madoka-chan and I aren't like that.
これ
Really?
本当ですよ。
Really?
そうですか。
Oh, is that so?
それは失礼しました。
Please, excuse me. I apologized meekly. Seems I jumped to a hasty conclusion there. Even so, Madoka-san and Oishi-san seemed rather well acquainted for 2 people who would rarely interact on police-related matters, so I thought there might have been something else going on.
話も別に大したことじゃないです。
It's a long story, but it's no big deal.
ちょいと人生相談を引き受けていただけですよ。
I've just been providing a bit of life counseling.
彼女のね。
For her, I mean.
人生相談。
Life counseling.
ええ。
Right?
多分遅かれ早かれ赤坂さんもお聞きになると思いますがね。
Maybe sooner or later she'll come asking you for some counseling too, Kasuka-san.
彼女もうすぐ結婚するんですよ。
Madoka is getting married soon.
それはおめでたいことですね。
Really? Congratulations are in order.
ねえ、確かにいいお話です。
Yeah, it's certainly a nice story.
ただその結婚にはお姉さんが猛烈に反対しているらしくて、現在もまだ延期中なんですよ。
However, her sister is fiercely opposed to the marriage, so the whole affair is on hold at the moment.
それで悩み相談ってわけです。
And that's what she was talking with me about.
お姉さん、見ない警部がですか？
Her sister, Chief Inspector Minai? Face of the witty Chief Inspector flashed through my mind for a moment. Indeed, as the older sister, she was probably looking out for her little sister when she took a hard stance against Madoka's fiancé.
しかし、そんなに反対するってことは、
But is she so direct in opposing it?
よほど相手が悪いんですか？
Is her fiancé really that objectionable?
いえいえ、相手は人格、社会的地位ともに立派な人ですよ。
No, the other man has both a charming personality and powerful social standing.
なんて言ったって、警察署の署長さんなんですから。
But well, he's the chief of police. Huh? Wait, really? I immediately spat out the coffee I was drinking. Oh, spit take. The chief of Kakuichi Station?
はい、そのまさかなんですよ。
Yes, exactly what you're thinking.
山沖署長さんがまどかちゃんのお相手ってわけです。
Chief Yamaoki is Madoka-chan's fiancé.
だから赤坂さん、彼女に変なことしたら間違いなく血を見ますよ。
So Akatsuka-san, your blood will spill if you do anything funny with her, alright? No.
いや、
No,
そんなの考えたこともないですよ。
I'd never even think of it. But it was truly shocking. Chief Yamaoki was younger than Oishi-san, but he should still be in his 50s at least. Plus, even in his youth, he was a well-regarded detective with sharp eyes and a sharper sword. Though you'd never guess it from the way he talked. And that man was Madoka-san's fiancé.
まあその件は今度ゆっくりお話しするとして。
Well, I can tell you all about it later.
どうでしたか、そちらの方は。
So, how were the people in town?
今宿
Terrible.
町の何軒かの家、
I visited a few houses in Umineko town.
どこも留守でしたが、畠山という家ではかろうじて家の人の顔を見ることができました。
Most of them were out, but I did manage to meet a few people from this family called the Hatakeyamas.
と言ってもほとんど門前払いですが、
Though I pretty much got turned away at the door.
ああ、畠山さんね。
Ah, Hatakeyama-san.
確か70過ぎのじいさんがいる家でしたっ
The house with the old man in his 70s, right?
け。で、何か話してくれましたか？
So, did they tell you anything? Oishi-san held a piece of paper in his hand and placed a check mark next to the entry for a Hatakeyama family. I shook my head and took a sip of my coffee, then continued.
やはりというか、何も話してはくれませんでした。
As you'd expect, they didn't tell me anything.
収穫はゼロです。
No progress today.
そうですか。やっぱりね。
I figured as much.
予想はしていたつもりでしたが、老人だけでなく若夫婦も子供もです。
I expected this from the old man, but not the young couple and the children too.
誰も堅くなに口を開こうとしない。
Everyone is so stubborn and they all refuse to talk.
どこの家も同じですね。
It's the same at every house.
口を聞くところが
Forget simply keeping their mouths shut.
まるで疫病神みたいな態度ですか。
It was like they treated you as an angel of death. I take it?
ええ、まあ
Yeah, I suppose. I slowly nod to confirm Oishi-san's observation. Right, they were treating us as though I was bringing a curse upon them.
その話を聞きに行って自分がたたり扱いとはね。
When we go to ask their stories, they treat us as though we're the ones who are cursed.
シャレにもなりませんな。
Shouldn't joke about that. Oishi-san let out a dry laugh. Seemed like he'd been through virtually the same thing.
何かどこかの方から口止めがかかっているとか？
Is there someone or something silencing them?
それはわかりません。
I don't know.
もっとよく調べてみないと。
I'll have to look more carefully.
それよりも気になったのが魔除けですね。
But what I'm more concerned about is all those talismans.
魔除け？
Talismans?
ちょっと他では聞いたことのないような薄気味悪い祝詞を唱えたり、外壁にお社様の文字を書きつけたり。
Also those creepy prayers, prayers unlike anything I've ever heard before, and the word Oyashiro-sama written all over the outer walls.
面用というか、
They're beyond mysterious.
なんというか。
Kazuma Hatakama's prayers resounded in my ears and wouldn't cease.
お社の大神、お社の大神。
Great God Oyashiro, great God Oyashiro.
これのかむどこにおわす、かけまくも賢き、お社の大神。
Nestled in the shrine, I see your work unfinished, great God Oyashiro. The voice I heard from the back of the house didn't sound like worship for Oyashiro-sama. It sounded like a desperate attempt to ward off a curse. And that wasn't the only strange thing. When I visited that house, one thing immediately jumped into my eyes. Those life-size human-shaped paper figures, with the names of each family member written on them. It looked like a ritual from an ancient shrine or some occult sorcery, not something you'd see in a small residential district.
確かにまあ見ていて気色のいいものではありませんね。
Yeah, doesn't sound like a pleasant sight from what I'm hearing. Plus, they were hanging in sets, all fluttering together.
ああ、あれですか。
Ah, you mean those?
赤坂さんも見たんですね。
So you saw them too, huh, Kasuka-san?
ええ。
Yeah.
それじゃやはり大石さんも？
So, that means you did too?
私も見ましたよ。
I also saw them.
そして壁に何やら読み取れない呪文。
And the incomprehensible writing on the walls that looked like magic spells.
いわゆる祝詞も延々と書かれていましてね。
Those so-called prayers were written everywhere. I remembered it too. The eerie side of the walls covered in writing. Kazuma Hatakama's prayers still echoed in my ears. And those same words were written on the wall too.
お社の大神、お社の大神。
Great God Oyashiro, great God Oyashiro.
これのかむどこにおわす、かけまくも賢き、お社の大神。
Nestled in this shrine, I see your work unfinished. Great God Oyashiro.
お社の
Great God Oyashiro, I am humbled by the depth of your grace.
かたじけなみ祭り。
Always.
かしこみ。
What did those words mean? What was he trying to say? I had no idea. However, seeing his sheer persistence made me feel even more terrified than bewildered.
Oishi-san.
Oishi-san? Just then, a voice called in from outside the break room, so we both turned our heads. Chief Inspector Manai had just come back from an investigation carrying a large paper bag.
Oh, お疲れ様です、ともいちゃん。
Oh, thanks for all the hard work, Tomoe-chan.
今日も暑かったでしょう。
It was hot today, huh?
そうですね。
Yeah, it was.
今日は留守も含めて6軒回ってきました。
I handled 6 houses today, including the vacant ones.
夕食まだなので失礼してもよろしいですか？
Oh, I haven't had dinner yet. Would you please excuse me?
ええ、どうぞ。
Sure, go right ahead. Buh. After I encouraged her, Chief Inspector and I said excuse me, then sat on the chair across from me and spread the paper bag open, and I was startled the moment I saw it. There were at least 10 hamburgers in that oversized paper bag. No, 20. No, even more than that. It was completely packed.
お腹すいた。
She's so cool. Ah, I'm hungry.
どうしました？赤坂警視。
Is something wrong, Inspector Akaska?
いや、別に。
No, nothing. Is she going to eat all that by herself? Feeling it best not to say anything more, I turned to Oishi-san. He gave a forced smile while shrugging his shoulders. This was apparently a normal portion size for Chief Inspector Manai.
すみません警視。
Sorry, Inspector.
実は歯医者に行ってて昼食取りそびれてしまったので、その分もっと。
I had to skip lunch today because I spent my lunch break at the dentist. No, that's not the point.
やっぱり
So...
ハンバーガーが好きな女って変ですか？
Do you really think that there's something weird about women who like hamburgers? That wasn't it either. However, Oishi-san signaled that it would be best not to pursue the subject, so I kept quiet. Even so, she was quite the high-spirited lady. I felt confident that I had more stamina than anyone in the public security office, but she could easily blow me away. Oh. I suddenly stared at Chief Inspector Manai as she unwrapped another hamburger. After hearing her story earlier, I couldn't help but feel conflicted over it. She and Madoka were orphans, so they were the only family each other had. Living in that sort of relationship all these years and suddenly dealing with her sister's marriage, and to make it worse, the groom was her boss. Would I be able to keep a clear head if I were in that situation? That was a stupid question. Of course not. And Madoka-san had to choose between breaking off her marriage to Chief Yamaoki or agreeing to the marriage without the blessing of her only living family member. It was such a lonely story, but since I had no personal connection to Chief Inspector Manai, I didn't have the right to persuade her otherwise. For now, it seemed only time could solve this problem. I wonder what Oishi-san thought of this dispute.
何か？
Something wrong?
いえ。
No.
そういえば、見ない警部。何か変わったことはありましたか？
By the way, Chief Inspector Manai, did you notice anything unusual?
なんというか。
I suppose you could say so.
あったというよりも、変わったことばかりで少々面食らっています。
Or rather, every single thing was so peculiar that it was a bit bewildering. Then Chief Inspector Manai skillfully flipped open her notebook with one hand and provided us a brief report on her investigation. There were some small differences, but it was nearly identical to my own experience, so I only half listened. However...
そうそう。
Oh, that's right.
自分が今日調べてきた対象者の中には、生贄の儀式をやっている家がありました。
One of the subjects I investigated today was carrying out a ritual sacrifice in their house.
生贄?
Sacrifice? That was the first I'd heard of this.
身代わりというものでしょうか。
I guess you could call them scapegoats.
鶏か何かの鳥を屠殺して何羽かをまとめて庭の木に吊るしていました。
They slaughtered some chickens or some other kind of bird and hung them from the trees on the garden.
住民たちの話を聞いていると、何でもたたりを代わってくれるおまじないだそうで。
According to the other residents, it's apparently some kind of good luck charm that can ward off a curse.
何ですかそれは？
What's that all about?
詳しい話は直接聞くことができなかったんですが。
I wasn't able to directly ask about the details.
ちょうど木に鳥の死体を吊るしている現場に出くわしましたので、 壁越しに様子を伺ってきました。
I just happened to see the bird corpses hanging from a tree, so I looked over the fence.
そしたら老人の声が聞こえてきまして、
And then I heard the voice of an old man.
許しておくれ、わしらの身代わりだ。許しておくれ、わしらの身代わりだと。
Saying, accept the sacrifice and forgive us. Accept the sacrifice and forgive us.
要請を受けて保健所には連絡したんですが、鳥だと食用の場合もありますから注意くらいしかできないそうです。
I reported to the public health center, but they said they couldn't do more than give them a warning since the birds were edible animals.
自分としてもどうにも対応に困った次第で。
Even I wasn't really sure how to handle it. I could picture the scene in my mind. In a dimly lit room, holding the still living chickens down and offering them at the altar. The birds sorrowfully cried out, begging for their lives. Gwag, gwag, yeah. But the old man didn't care about the cries of the animals, and he wouldn't stop. So he lifted the kitchen knife overhead. Gwag, gwag, yeah. I don't know what those noises are. A deluge of sticky blood came flowing out. The old man opened his eyes wide as he repeated. Accept this sacrifice and forgive us. Accept this sacrifice and forgive us. The old man's words mixed together with a prayer I heard outside the Hatakiyama house. Great God, Oyashiro, great God, Oyashiro. It's that it happens so often, it's also so slowly read, and it's also not even a great prayer. It just repeats itself a lot. If I was to critique critique the chant. Nestled in this shrine, I see your work unfinished, great God, Oyashiro. But who am I to judge, I guess? Great God, Oyashiro, I am humbled by the depth of your grace. Always, always. Those old men recited the prayers as they took the lives of weak, innocent creatures.
写真もいくつか撮ってきましたので、今現像に回しています。
I took a few pictures. They're being developed now.
出来上がったらお二人にもお見せしますよ。
I'll show both of you once they're done. Please don't. Even so, were the people who left Hinamizawa really only doing this to keep the curse from coming for them? And could there really be a so-called curse in the first place? And if so, why would they be cursed? I didn't understand. Blind faith of these old men was a total mystery.
Akasaka Keishi?
Inspector Akaska? Yes. Chief Inspector Minai looked at me with a dubious expression. She must have noticed my face darkening while I imagined the sacrificial ceremony from her report.
すみません。
I'm sorry.
薄気味の悪い話を聞かせてしまって。
I made you listen to that awful story.
あ、いえ。
Ah, no, it's
そ
fine.
れむしろ
Oh, I cut him
親
off.
代様のたたりがここまで得体の知れないものだったのかと、どうにも釈然としなくって。
Actually, I was just reeling from realizing just how out of this world Oishiro-sama's curse is. Standing next to me, Oishi-san turned toward me while scratching the back of his head. Then he nodded with a wry smile.
親代様って神様は本来村に住む人間が結束するためのただの象徴的な存在であったはずなんですがね。
The god Oishiro-sama was originally just a symbolic entity intended to unite the villagers together, though.
人形とか生贄とかそんな古臭い祭礼の作法、もうとっくの昔に廃れたもんだと思っていましたよ。
But these effigies and sacrifices, I thought those ancient rituals had died out a long time ago.
あったんですか？以前は。
So, something like this happened in the past?
ばあ様の時代にね、
Back in the old days.
かれこれ40年以上も昔、赤坂さんも巴ちゃんも生まれていなかった頃の話ですよ。
More than 40 years ago, before either of you were even born. Sounds so removed from reality. Why were those fossil-like customs being dug up now?
まあそんな様子じゃ私たちに情報提供なんて断固拒絶でしょう。
Well, judging from the way they're acting, I doubt they'll be willing to provide us with any information.
ここも沖宮と同じかもしれませんね。
This location might be just like Okunomiya after all.
いえ、
Not entirely.
それでも少しは収穫がありました。
Actually, I did get a little information.
移り住んだのは5年前なんですが、ひなみ沢に在住していた祖父を去年に引き取った畠山という家に行ってきまして。
There was a family that moved out of Hinamizawa 5 years ago, but the grandfather continued living there until last year. I think the family name was Hatakeyama.
畠山
Hatakeyama? Hearing a familiar name, I raised my head. After double checking, that was definitely the house I visited today.
そうだったんですか。
Is that so?
すみません。うっかり同じところを回ってしまったみたいで。
Sorry, it seems we visited the same place by accident.
いえ、それはいいんです。
No, that's fine.
それよりよく話が聞けましたね。
Anyway, I'm surprised you got anything out of them.
確かあそこは2人ともかなり非協力的で、私は完全に空振りだったんですが。
The two of them were very uncooperative. It was a swing and a miss for me.
ええ、息子夫婦は全然ダメでした。
Yeah, the son and his wife were a total dead end.
ただ、近くの公園で見かけた女の子が偶然その家のお孫さんということで少しだけ話ができたんです。
But a girl I ran into at a nearby park turned out to be a grandchild from that household, so I was able to speak briefly with her. A girl. Hearing that reminded me of the look on the face of the little girl who gazed up at me like she wanted to tell me something. That must have been Aoi.
ええ、その葵ちゃんです。
Yes, Aoi-chan.
公園で友達にいじめられて泣いていたんですよ。
She was crying in the park after being bullied by some friends.
いじめられて
Being
いた。
bullied?
はい。
Yes. Chief Inspector Manai furrowed her brow and nodded. I could imagine why without needing to ask. Someone probably saw the strange decoration at Aoi's house, told all her friends, so they started making fun of her. An adult would be able to endure that. They'd even be able to acknowledge their role in the ordeal and take responsibility for it. But how could a child be responsible for any of this? It was a completely irrational train of thought.
それでどんな内容ですか？
Anyway, what did you learn?
はい。
Right.
それが
Well, according to Chief Inspector Manai, Kazuma was undergoing rehab at the Psyche Care and Welfare Center, but he came home last weekend at Yoshiko's request.
葵ちゃんの話ではどうやらカズマ氏の誕生日だったようです。
Aoi-chan said it was apparently Kazuma's birthday.
心身の状態も良好ということもあり、よしこ氏の仕事の都合も偶然ついたので、彼は2週間の期限付きで家に戻ってきたとの話でした。
His mind and body were in good condition, and Yoshiko had a convenient development at work, so they allowed him to come home for a 2-week period. When he first came back, he spent time in the park with his grandchildren, visited the neighbors, and played shogi with old friends. It seemed like there were no significant changes. But a few days later, the Great Hinamizawa disaster struck. Kazuma's behavior completely changed after that day.
本当は今日センターに戻る予定だったのですが、明日に延期したようですね。
Actually, he was originally scheduled to return to the center today, but seems they put it off until tomorrow.
今の状態で戻せば最悪入所を拒否される可能性もありますから。
If he tries to return to the center in his current state, there's a possibility they'll refuse entry, you see. After saying that, Chief Inspector Manai handed us a report on the Hatsukama family. She must have put that together before coming here. That means, if she goes to that care center tomorrow, she might be able to speak with Kazuma directly.
見ない警部。
Chief Inspector Manai.
これって次回は私たちも同行した方がよろしいでしょうか？
Would it be alright if we accompanied you there?
あ、いえ、
Actually, no.
私もここに来るまで迷っていたんですが、
I thought about that until I came here too.
どうも葵ちゃんの話ではカズマ氏は少々自閉的になっているそうなので、次回も私一人で聞き込みをしたいと思います。
But according to what Aoi-chan told me, Kazuma has been suffering from social anxiety, so I think it would be best if I spoke with him alone.
お二人の話を聞く限り、ひなみ沢の人たちのお社様信仰は相当深いようなので、センターの関係者も含めて慎重に行うつもりです。
I'm sure you're both aware the Inamizawa villages seem to have a deep-rooted faith in Oishiro-sama, so we need to act carefully around the people at the center.
そうですか。
I suppose so.
ただ、手応えがありましたらすぐにポケベルへ連絡します。
However, I'll page you as soon as I learn anything.
すみませんが、赤坂警視と大石さんは残りの別件をお願いできますか？
I'm sorry, Inspector Akasuka and Oishi-san, but would you mind continuing to investigate the other homes for now?
わかりました。
Understood.
もし何かありましたらいつでも呼んでください。
You're welcome to call anytime if something comes up. Chief Inspector Manai handed each of us a pager, and I slipped mine into my pocket. Then, she said she had another matter to attend to, so she left the break room.
すごいですね。
Amazing.
すごいでしょう。
Amazing, isn't it? I looked over at the beautifully flattened paper bag full of hamburger wrappers in the trash can.
見かけによらず健胆家なんですね。
Despite how she looks, she's quite the glutton, huh? Even so, how can so many burgers fit inside her slender body? And not just that, how is she able to continue eating like that while talking about sacrificial rituals?
大した女性です。
She's quite the lady.
本当に。
Really?
いや、まったく。
You could say that again.
あの子を見ていると父親のことを思い出しますよ。
When I look at that girl, she reminds me of her father.
父親？
Her father?
見ない警部のお父さんも警察の方だったんですか？
Was Chief Inspector Manai's father also a police officer? Oishi-san nodded, then stopped to light a cigarette. His eyes narrowed in thought, and I could see the smoke puff out as he began to speak.
過激派の山荘籠城事件でご一緒しましたが、捜査員全員が長期戦でへばっている中、一人だけカップラーメンを何杯もかっくらってね。
I worked with him during an incident where extremists laid siege to a mountain villa. All the investigators were bogged down with a lengthy battle, and you wouldn't believe how many servings of instant noodles he ate.
胃袋が鉄でできているんじゃないかと本気で思いましたよ。
I seriously wondered if his stomach was made of iron.
しかもその翌日の突入で、裏口から逃げ出した主犯格の一人をぶん投げて確保しちまって。
And then during the rush the next day, single-handedly beat up and apprehended one of the main criminals during an attempt to escape through the back door.
警視庁にもすごい奴がいるもんだと感心したもんです。
I was impressed the MPD had such an amazing guy working for them. Wow.
生きていれば赤坂さんの上司になっていたかもしれませんね。
If he was still around, he could have been your boss, Kasuka-san.
絶対こいつは偉くなるって確信してたんですが。
I was absolutely sure this guy would be going places, but... I caught a hint of loneliness in Oishi-san's tone, so apparently Chief Inspector Manai's father was a public safety officer. And he had already passed away.
いやいや、すみませんね。
Oops, sorry about that.
柄にもなくしんみりしちゃいましたよ。
It's not like me to be such a downer. No.
いえ、そんな。
No, not at all.
大石さん、見ない警部のお父さんは亡くなられたのですか？
Oishi-san, did Chief Inspector Manai's father pass away?
ねえ、事故です。
Yes, in an accident.
いや、むしろ殉職だと思っています。
No, I'd like to think he died in the line of duty.
殉職？
In
それって
the line of duty, then... But just then... Suddenly, an alarm went off in the room. We received a report from Prefectural Police Headquarters about a new incident.
よりにもよって。
Today of all days? The sound effect. Climbing out of the car, Chief Inspector and I looked up at the house where the crime occurred while grinding her teeth and clenching her fists. However, she quickly returned to her senses and started barking orders to her subordinates running around the crime scene.
藤田君と花田君、野じ馬のラインをもっと下げて。
Fujita-kun, Hanada-kun, move the police line further back.
安藤さんは機捜の早見さんを呼んできてください。
Ando-san, please make contact with Hayama-san.
はい。
Roger.
ほら、下がって。
Come on, move along.
あそこ邪魔だ。
Back up. No entry tape was already installed, and mobile investigators from Prefectural Police Headquarters had already begun on-site investigation. Eventually, one of the detectives who entered the house ran over to Chief Inspector Minai.
早見さん、容疑者は
Hayami-san, do you have a suspect?
助かりそうですか？
Are there any survivors? The elderly detective named Hayami silently shook his head toward Chief Inspector Minai, and then, stretcher covered in a white cloth came rolling out of the entrance of the house. It was a worst-case scenario.
大石さん
Oishi-san. Oishi-san remained silent and continued staring at the entrance of the house. No way. I never would have expected the situation to take such a sudden turn.
すみません、通ります。
Pardon me, coming through. One member of the mobile investigation team passed by me and rushed over to a parked police car and grabbed the wireless receiver and began a report. Just seeing how things looked out there, it's clear how much of a disaster the work site must be.
殺人事件現場の馬宿町から小畑清宅の現場検証を報告します。
Reporting in from the scene of the murder, the home of Kiyoshi Obata in Umayado town.
被害者は畠山一馬氏で、死因は出血死。
The victim is Kazuma Hatakeyama. Cause of death is excessive blood loss.
胸部と頸部の数箇所を容疑者の持参した文化包丁で刺された模様。他に
We identified several stab wounds from a kitchen knife on his chest and neck. Aside from that, the commotion had consumed the surrounding cityscape. Spectators were flocking to the scene, rushing to see what had happened. Oishi-san and I could only stand by and watch the investigators running around like that. Looking back, I saw a familiar house. The Hatakeyama house that I visited earlier today. Those eerie decorations I saw out of the corner of my eye made the scene all the more peculiar. It looked like there was a TV reporter in the front of the crowd holding a camera and beginning an on-site broadcast.
本日午後6時過ぎ、馬宿町の小畑清容疑者宅を訪れていた畠山一馬さんが突然包丁を持って襲いかかった容疑者に襲われ死亡しました。
At 6 p.m. this evening, while visiting the household of Kiyoshi Obata in Umayado town, Kazuma Hatakeyama-san was assaulted by the suspect with a kitchen knife, passed away. It looked like a live broadcast. Despite all the chaos and excitement, the reporter remained calm and articulate.
被害者は畠山一馬さんで、小畑容疑者の向かいの家に住んでおりました。
The victim, Kazuma Hatakeyama, lived in the house across from the suspect, Obata.
なお、小畑容疑者は犯行後に自ら凶器を喉に突き立て自殺したとのことです。
Also, the suspect Obata committed suicide after the crime by taking the knife to his own throat. And then, the next words caused us to shudder.
え？あ、たった今続報が届きました。
Huh? Ah, a report has just arrived.
小畑容疑者は7年前柿内市に移住するまでは先日大災害のあったひなみ沢村の隣町。
Before moving to Kakuichi City 7 years ago, the suspect Obata was living in a town near Hinamizawa Village, the scene of the recent disaster.
沖宮に住んでいて、畠山さんとは数少ない友人関係にあったそうです。
He lived in Okinomiya, and Hatakeyama-san was one of his few friends.
この事件について警察の発表は
Regarding this incident, the police have accounted 7 years ago. Our investigation list only goes back 5 years. Do we need to alter our investigation to include people who left Hinamizawa before the dam conflict began in 1978? This is serious. It was difficult enough just going back 5 years. How far back do we need to look? The expanding scope of the investigation suddenly made me feel nauseous.
Oishi-san!
Oishi-san! Sorry, need water there. Okay, before long, Chief Inspector Minai finished preparing arrangements and came back to us.
勝馬氏の家族には被害が及んでいないようです。
It seems that Kazuma's family is unharmed.
ただ、事情聴取を行うには動揺が激しくて、なんとも。
However, they're too shaken up to be questioned right now. My fist clenched wildly and I began to tremble. Then right there...
姫さん、大変だ。
Princess, there's a problem.
こっちへ来てくれ。
Come this way.
早見さん。
Hayama-san. Seeing Detective Hayami's pale face, Chief Inspector Minai opened her eyes wide. Then, after glancing at us strangers, he whispered something in her ear. What?
それは本当ですか?
Seriously?
間違いない。
No doubt.
菅谷には山村課長と高屋敷が、沢渡には刑事二課の連中が向かったらしい。
It seems Chief Yamamura and Takayashiki headed to Sugaya, and the second criminal investigation division headed to Sawatari.
いずれも死傷者が出て容疑者は犯行現場で自殺している。
They found victims at both locations, and in both cases, suspect committed suicide at the crime scene.
菅谷って今日私の言った
Sugaya, I visited there today.
まさかそんなことって
No way, how could this... Chief Inspector Manai's eyes opened wide, and her lip began to tremble. Her skin went pale. She couldn't hide her reaction.
どうしたのですか、南井警部。
What happened, Chief Inspector Manai?
菅谷で一家無理心中事件が起こったそうです。
It seems there was another family murder-suicide incident in Sugaya.
自宅に放火して被疑者は家族ともども焼死したとのこと。
The house was set on fire, and the suspect and family burned to death together.
他にも沢渡りでは介護センターの大浴場で数名を巻き込み自らも死亡。
There were several fatalities at another incident in the public bath at the care center in Sawatari.
それってまさか。
Wait, then what you're saying is...
菅谷は私が調査に行ったところです。
I visited Sugaya during my investigation today.
そして沢渡りは
And Sawatari was...
私ですね。
That's where I went.
おそらくそこは私が会ったばあさんのいる介護センターでしょう。
That care center is probably the one where I met an old woman today.
やっぱり
I knew it.
じゃあ今日起こった事件の容疑者はみんな南沢出身者ってことなの？
Then all the suspects from the incidents today were people from Inamazawa? Why?
警部？
Chief Inspector. Overwhelmed with shock, Chief Inspector and I repeatedly pounded on the wall beside her, then tilted her head back and groaned. After seeing that, her team of detectives came running over, but she held up a hand to say I'm fine. Then, she shook her head as she walked with Detective Hayami to the police car.
大石さん、これは一体どういうことでしょう。
Oishi-san, what the hell does all this mean?
どうですかね。
What indeed?
赤坂さん、偶然だと思われますか？
Do you think it's a coincidence, Akasuka-san? My heart was shouting. There's no way this could be a coincidence. Maybe my heart was shouting loud enough that Oishi-san could hear it. But still, how could I answer that? Would I be admitting the curse is real if I said it wasn't a coincidence? Impossible. That can't be possible. Ding 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 ding. Psychosomatic medical report. What? Didn't I click it? I must have missed. Or hit the arrow on accident? I don't know. Name redacted, 14. Gender, female. Address, redacted, Okinomiya, Shishibone City. Remarks, attended middle school in the city. Medical exam contents. Blood testing was performed to identify the cause of sudden fainting symptoms during everyday activity. Originally investigated by the Shishibone General Hospital Department of Medicine on the suspicion of blood disease, anemia, but due to the sudden onset of migraines of unknown origin, doctor advised her to enroll in psychosomatic counseling. Diagnosis, moderate to severe autonomic ataxia. Due to the risk of chronic symptoms, hospitalization is strongly recommended. Planning to begin pharmacotherapy? Sure, let's go with that. After carefully explaining the circumstances to both parents and obtaining their consent. Also, considering the psychological stress on the patient herself, the explanation to be provided is the treatment of blood disease. Other notes. Personal information is to be strictly protected. Text below that point is unreadable. Scribbles in German. Aye, German. Alright, I think we're calling it there for the night. I don't want to start in on another section and potentially run long or something, potentially. So we'll do that. I think we should be able to read more Saturday. Regular Higurashi reading type deal. As I said at the top, in theory, there should be a stream tomorrow night. We should be the return of Blueprints after a little time off of Blueprints. But I do have evening plans, like right after my work day tomorrow. I'm gonna be with a friend, not some friends, a friend. And I don't know how late that's gonna go. I don't know if I'm gonna get back from it and be like in the mood to want to sit down and stream, let alone stream Blueprints, especially. So I don't know. So in the air, 50-50 chance stream happens tomorrow. If not, then there'll also be no stream on Thursday. I'll be back on Friday. We'll have 2 days off. Everyone will be okay. And we'll be back Friday night. If I am on tomorrow, then so be it. We'll do it. We'll do Blueprints. It'll be great. Friday, I'm thinking, as of right now, Friday night would be when we start back in. And we'll have the, that night to attempt the Deltarune Chapter 3 secret boss thing. So that's going to be our outlook for the rest of the week, basically. So if I don't see the rest of the week, I'll be back Friday night. Finish the week strong. In that case, if I'm back tomorrow, don't finish the week strong. Just have a great Wednesday. Thanks for watching this. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for reading Higurashi along with me. This section seemed a bit of a slog. I think that's just more of a mood thing. I think it was more setup thing. I think there was at the beginning the interesting bit between Tomoe and Madoka. I think they've got an interesting dynamic. I think their backstory, although it's played up kind of goofily slightly, I do think their dynamic and their backstory is somewhat interesting as characters. I think the little bit about her holding on to this apparent note in a book, or a little notebook thing that her dad wrote, and her holding on to like this very cryptic thing that he scribbled down, I think is very interesting. I'm very curious to see more of that if that gets developed. But everything else here seems to be more of like a setup for whatever we'll do for the rest of the chapter, where this investigation team of Oishi, Akasuka, and Tomoe try to get to the bottom of this. So, yeah, more of this reading on Saturday, most likely. Blueprints maybe tomorrow. If not, be back Friday night. So, until one of those days.